Let me tell you about this funny thing that happened to me, if I can find it.
Mm-hmm.
It's to do with the way iMessage works on your Mac. I don't know what the solution is, but I very often find it hard to know who I'm messaging, and because things just flip on their own, and sometimes I think I'm messaging one person and I'm messaging another person. So
Yes.
obviously, you send the wrong message to the wrong person. We've all been there. You've been there. You've done it to me.
Everybody's done this because, especially on the Mac, iMessage rearranges the location of where everybody is in your little sidebar, depending on who's messaged you recently.
Yeah.
And I did discover, because I was complaining about it on Twitter, that if you double click on someone's picture on iMessage, it'll pop them out in a little window on the side.
Yeah.
And that's helpful. But you also I don't know. I find if two people are messaging me at one time, my brain is going to explode.
Yeah.
And it's hard to know how long you're going to talk to people for to pull them out. Like, when is it worth doing this? It's frustrating. It's frustrating. So yes, it's very easy in iMessage to send a message to the wrong person.
I had a good one the other day. It was around the time of my birthday, and I was messaging my mother-in-law, and I believe it was Destin. And I was emailing Destin about some contract or document I had, and he was asking me if some wording had been changed in this contract. And I was basically saying to him, I haven't even read it, but I doubt it will have been changed, and I think it will be the same as all the other previous drafts. And at the same time, I had just that day received a birthday card from my mother-in-law, and it had like a picture of someone playing cricket on the front. So I wanted to thank her for it. So I sent this. So I sent this message to my mother-in-law saying, "Thank you very much for my lovely cricket card from Brady." Mm-hmm. And then the next message I sent to her as well, which was meant to be to Destin, said, "I honestly haven't looked at it, but I'm sure it won't be different from any of the others."
Oh.
And it was such a perfect follow-on. Thanks for my lovely cricket card. I haven't looked at it. It won't be different from all the others. It was I had to phone her immediately to explain before she read it, saying, "You're about to see the rudest text message you've ever seen in your life."
That is bad. That is bad and a spectacular alignment.
I know.
Of messages.
It was nice. It was nice. So I did want to share that one. So that was one of those ones that just the stars lined up. She thought it was hilarious.
Mm-hmm. Did she though?
Yeah, she did. She did. Let me talk to you about swearing. I uploaded a video the other day, and in it, I had this colourful character, this guy in it, and he was being all flamboyant and interesting. And at one point, he said, "Hot damn," like in a really excited way. He was getting out something to play with, and he was so excited about it. He went, "Hot damn." And then he continued with his conversation. And when I was editing it, I did for half a second think, "Hot damn." And then I thought, no, he said it. He knew the camera was rolling. It was fun. It's funny. I don't think that's an offensive word. People know that I don't swear, but they also know I have my own definition of swear words. And I often say these words and people say, "Oh, I thought you didn't swear. But you said X, Y, and Z." So
yeah,
I don't consider damn a swear word. Yeah. So I left it in the video, and then I got an email from I wish I could find the email. It was a really nice email, and it was really well written. But I can't find it by searching for the word damn, because this person was so offended by the word damn. They didn't use it. They didn't include it in their email. And I can't remember what other words they used. But anyway, they said I shouldn't have left it in, and teachers play these videos to kids, etc., etc. And I was like, that's interesting.
What was your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction was I went to Twitter and I asked my Twitter followers if they think damn is an offensive word. And I would say the majority feeling was it's maybe a 1 out of 10. It's a very, very mild and not a problem. A couple of people said they thought it was offensive. A lot of people said not offensive even in the slightest. Some people said very, very mild, not a problem. I basically wrote back to the person who wrote the email and said to her, "Thank you very much." I sent her a link to the Twitter conversation. I said, "I think you might find this interesting." I also said, "Beware, there's some fruity language in it," because, as you can imagine, some jokey people made some pretty funny replies.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, it's just got me thinking about the word. I wonder where you stand on the word. How do you feel about it?
Well, first, I did a very similar thing to you on one of my videos a while back. The one where I was talking about how to become the British monarch. This was around the time that the first royal baby was going to be born.
Yeah.
And I did this for a word which I thought was so mild, but I was aware that this was a video that might be being shown in primary schools in the UK because it was this topic was just going around at the time.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact it was shown in a bunch of primary schools. But I had the word bastard in there one point.
Yeah.
Because one of the rules is don't be a bastard.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing of hesitating over this. And I thought, let me check with Twitter just to see what people's reactions are to this. And it was about the same thing, maybe 1 in 10. And most people thought it was fine. And I left it in because it just worked way better in the script than trying to write around it. So I too have done this dipstick into the current of the internet to see, like, what do people think about this word? What do people think about
you did yours before the video. I did mine afterwards. But
I place Dem in the category of so mild it never really crosses my attention.
Yeah.
But the problem with these words and the problem with lots of things is that different people take it very differently. And so there does seem to be a group of people who regard it as much more serious than I do.
Yeah.
But before I say what I'm about to say, I want to make it really clear that I am 100% behind your policy of having a list of words that you don't want to say and not saying that. I fully support that. I think it's a totally reasonable position for anyone to take.
Okay, well, I don't really think you accurately. Yeah, okay. Go on.
Do you want to try to rephrase it just quickly?
Well, there is a list of words I don't say, but not because I think it would be wrong to say them. As I've said before, I just do it because it's like a weird streak now.
Yeah, I didn't say it's because you thought they're wrong. I just said you have a list that you don't say.
Okay, it's just like a game, but it's a novelty. Yeah, but yeah, right.
Yeah. But I am aware that you don't think that they're wrong, and that's all. That's also why, I can, without any problem, back your position.
Okay.
But I just don't want people to start thinking that we're having some kind of argument here, and we're not.
Okay.
But
because we'd never do that.
We'd never argue. we haven't had a surprisingly serious, intense conversation this time that is going to be massively cut down to make us sound friendlier.
I hope you've enjoyed the 43rd and final episode of Hello Internet.
Yeah, it was great, but we now have irreconcilable differences. I have this feeling about curse words, which I have tried to express some time, but has not been received well, which is that it's the people who react strongly to curse words that give those curse words their power. The words would have no power at all were it not for the reactions of people to them. When I see people kicking up a fuss about a word that is, let's say by broad general consensus, not a strong curse word. This is just like the memes thing. You are the one who is making this word worse. The more of a fuss you kick it up, you are making it stronger. If you cared less, you would make it weaker. And people seem to get angry about this when I discuss this. Also, hypocritical alert here. I bleep some curse words on this podcast. Like fuck and shit and other words.
Because you're in bleeping mode, what's the most offensive word you're willing to say out loud?
Well, the problem is this is also being recorded, right? Okay. I could say some horrible things. Even I don't want to bleep. Right?
Okay. So those two are the two words you'll say, even knowing they'll be beeped.
Yeah, well, knowing they'll be beeped. And I think we can use fuck as the king of curse words. Right? Fuck is the king of curse words.
Okay.
Is fair just to use as an example of a pure curse word.
See, I can't. I won't even say that word, Gray. Although I could go f and k, and you could you could join them together and put a beat between them and make it sound like I said them.
I could do that. Do you want to do that a little closer together to make it easier for me? No, you don't, do you? It's getting a little too close to your boundary, huh? Nope, not gonna do it.
My wife would love it if I swore. She when like she always asks me to swear like as a treat. Like she says, "Go on, just say it once, just for me." And she gets all excited, and then I'm like, "No, not doing it." She's like, "Oh, go on." Maybe like one day, like as a birthday present, I'll do it. But I don't even know what we're talking about anymore.
So, in order to avoid people thinking that I'm being hypocritical here,
Yeah,
I bleep those words
Yep.
for two reasons.
yeah,
One of which is that to be on the iTunes store, I don't want to have to mark the podcast as explicit,
yeah,
which seems to ghettoize the podcasts to some extent.
yeah.
Now, when I first started the podcast, I was trying to find the list of banned words from Apple just so I could know, like, what does Apple think the boundaries are? And there is no list. They just have a nice, vague sounding explicit words are not allowed. So they leave it to the judgment of the podcast hosts and the complaints of the masses, I guess. This is what's occurring here. So there wasn't an explicit list. But even if Apple said, "Oh, we're not going to mark explicit podcasts. We don't care. Just upload whatever." I would still bleep fuck and shit and c***er. You know, all these things.
That's going to need 2 beeps, isn't it?
I don't know how I'll work that out. But I would still bleep these words because bleeping is funnier.
Yeah,
It's way funnier when something is bleeped than if it's not bleeped.
yeah. But you can't bleep someone going, "Hot damn."
Yeah, then you just look like an idiot.
You look like the biggest prude of all
Yeah,
time.
you look like a prude, and it's not funny. And I think bleeping damn falls into that category of what? It's not funny at all. But this sound, fuck, with the bleep is like it's just funny. There's no way around that. And so I would totally bleep it even if I didn't have to.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just trying to get around that. Like, that's why it's bleeped.
For comedy
Yeah,
value.
just for comedy value. The podcast, the job of the podcast is to be something that people want to listen to. And I think it being funnier makes people want to listen to it more. But
All right.
but so my general feeling about this then is with the curse words, it is people's very reactions that give them their power. Just think about it this way. Like the thing that happens with little kids is that little kids at some point figure out curse words.
Yeah.
But if you imagine a little kid who figures out a curse word, and when they start saying them, all of the adults in their vicinity just don't respond. They just pretend like this has no impact on them. Do you think the kids would still be as drawn to curse words? No.
Yeah.
This is just like banning anything. You go, "Oh, I didn't care before, but now, ooh, wow, this is so attractive now that it's been banned." You know, I'm a little kid, and the only thing I have to do is make a certain series of sounds with my mouth that are totally arbitrary, and all of the adults around me, their butt cheeks clench, and they draw in their breath, and it's like amazing. And so that's why the whole power in any curse word comes from people's reactions. And I tend to get frustrated with censor police. And I get frustrated with those comments against you in the Reddit where people are like, "I can't believe Brady said this word. I thought that was a curse word." She's like, let it go. If this word bothers you so much, the best thing that you can do is to not publicly and constantly tell everybody how much it bothers you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind people calling me on it because we once discussed that I don't say curse words, so I can see
it's
why
a
maybe
little
like
different.
they're confused maybe, and
Yes, they're
hopefully
confused.
by now,
Those precious, they're confused.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story from my past, if you're willing.
no, let's end the podcast there. I think.
You get bored. I promise. This is a story that involves people. You usually think I don't tell stories.
Great. There's not room for 2 guys with boring anecdotes in this podcast.
There might not be.
Go on.
Okay, so when I was in college, one of the physics professors happened to have 2 young boys in about middle school age, maybe slightly younger. Let's say around 8 and 12, somewhere in that range. And this professor did not like cursing, which is totally fine. But he did a thing that I always wished he didn't, which was before he came into the labs, he would have his boys wait outside, and he would come in and he would tell us, I'm about to bring my boys into the lab. Please don't curse or say rude things around them.
Right.
And I wish he didn't do that, because just, again, normal civil society, if kids are around, I'm much less likely to curse if there are children around.
Yeah.
But it's like, you've planted the idea of saying horrible things around kids in my mind in this way that is just has now made it just irresistibly attractive. And so I would normally just not think about it much. My brain would just kick in and you'd censor yourself down because there are kids in the room. That's just what you do. But when you come in and expressly tell me I'm not allowed to say bad things around your children, I'm just dying to say bad things around your children.
Really?
I just can't resist. And
Would you do it?
I definitely had things slip in a way that I never would have if he had just not said anything, if he just brought the kids in the room.
Gray, do you know what this is?
What?
It's you being naughty.
God damn it, Brady. You got to stop with that. I'm going to bleep that.
You're so naughty, Gray.
Yeah, I'm bleeping the naughties from here on out. It's just creepy. I almost think that little example is like a microcosm of the broader societal reaction to this stuff. And that's why I think it is people's reactions that give curse words their powers.
No.
They don't have anything intrinsic in themselves. They are just words. But you're using here as an example, which we've sort of touched upon before this podcast. I've often thought, what the internet should do, just to prove my point, is make a campaign about overreacting on purpose to a word. And naughty is an excellent choice of a word, because we potentially have cultural differences and misunderstandings here. And it's like a word that might be slightly on the edge. And so if everybody started vastly overreacting to naughty as some kind of shockingly dirty sexual word, that reaction, right? If people did that consistently, you could make the word forbidden, right? You could do that.
I'm all for changing words. It's like the word gay, it really changed, didn't it? Used from one thing to another. Let's make naughty let's change naughty.
Yeah, words definitely change, but naughty, I think, is a great one, because it would demonstrate the point, and it's just so pointless. Right? It would be so pointless to do it. But I have a little bit of that reaction every time you say the word naughty. This podcast has been a perfect example. Why have you said it so many times during this recording? It's precisely because every time you say it, I'm creeped out.
How about Fox's Empire, brought to you by Hello Internet?
Brought to you by Bradley Herron. That'd be great.
Is this the start of something, Gray? Naughty boy. I see what you're doing.
Stop.
I see what you're doing. You're being naughty.
God damn it, baby. That's
Oh,
so
you said damn. I want to come to that later on.
She's the best dog ever.
This is the best dog.
No, this is the best dog.
Actually, no, Lulu, you're the best dog.
No,
but
Lucy is the best dog. Lucy is the best dog.
Can I ask you a question?
Ask away.
This just came to me.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think would win a fight between you and me? A physical fight, if we were both just going for it? Be honest.
Okay. I have two answers to this. Let's say we're in some situation that's like a boxing ring, right? Where there's a ref and we're having a fight under those circumstances.
Yeah.
Like if we were actually going to fight in real life,
Yeah.
you would probably win.
Right.
However, I think if we were in a situation where we were having a legitimate fight to the death, I would put my money on me then in that case. If it's only one of us is coming out of this alive, I think I might overcome under those circumstances.
What's the difference before you tell me about the reason for your second answer? Because that's kind of what I meant, just a raw fight, in the jungle. But why would I win a boxing match?
I don't mean like a boxing match. I just mean any kind of fight. Let's say it was a reward on Patreon that if we raise a certain amount of money, you and I will have a fight in a ring, right? We're not going to do that, people. Don't even start. But let's just say that was a reward.
Never say never.
Yeah, maybe for shard money, I might consider it, but it could be on pay-per-view.
We all have our price.
With a fight like that, though, there's a very different calculus going on, which is that there is some planned life after the fight. And so you have to make a calculation of when it is you want to concede that fight. So I think I would be much more likely to concede soon. A fight to the death is different because if you lose, there is nothing. And so any amount of physical harm to yourself is potentially worth it because otherwise you're dead.
You're more likely just to quit if you can. But if there's no quitting, then you're betting on you.
If there's no quitting, I'm betting on me.
But if there is quitting, you're a quitter.
That's not exactly the way I would phrase it, but if you want to phrase it that way, you can.
Why do you think you would win the fight to the death?
Under those circumstances, I might just be a crazy fighter, right? That I would have some sort of deep down reserve inside of me. And it would just be all out. It would, there's no gentlemanly fighting here. It would just be whatever you could possibly do.
Yeah.
So I'm not guaranteeing that I would win. Just to be clear, I don't think that this is like obviously I would win. I'm just saying I would put my money on me if it was a fight to the death. But even still, I think we're relatively evenly matched. So it might be like a 60-40 me fight to the death and maybe a 70-30 you boxing match kind of fight.
Okay.
How do you feel about these numbers? What do you think about this?
Well, I was thinking about this on my drive home tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And I decided pretty quickly and pretty easily that you would win.
I don't agree with that.
What do you mean you don't agree with it? You just said that's what you think too.
Well, again, if I laid out my two scenarios, I think I made this very clear. But why do you think I would win?
Well, you are bigger.
I'm taller than you. Yeah, that's true.
And you seem to have quite big fists. I wouldn't want to get punched by one of your hands.
Uh-huh.
But the main reason was kind of what you said. I think there's a bit of, like, I think you have a big reservoir of anger you could call upon if you needed to.
Mm-hmm.
You could just go wild. Yeah, and I was thinking, cage fight to the death. Yeah, I think you'd just go a bit crazy. Like when you burned yourself with coffee, the Hulk would come out.
That would actually be my strategy to win. I would burn myself with coffee right before the fight.
Yeah. No, I do. I think you would win. I think you would win a fight between us. If it was like sport, maybe not, because you'd just be like meh. But if it was not necessarily to the death, but if it was like real anger at each other and just wanting to really hurt each other, I think you would do better. I like get angry for short periods and then I just like don't mind anymore. But I think you could just sustain the aggression.
Well, I guess we'll never find out unless that Patreon thing comes through.
Like, that night when I was sending you all those naughty pictures, she was encouraging me.
Okay, can we just for the listeners, we need to just establish right away what you're talking about before
this is the Brady definition of naughty, not the grey definition of naughty.
Before people's imaginations start running wild.
I think that ship has sailed.
Because as I did tell your wife that you and I were busy sharing naughty pictures with each other. And that's why we were on our phones on opposite sides of the world. You started this, I want to be clear, of sending me, I don't even know how to describe this, pictures that were of innocuous objects, but that were somehow still suggestive pictures, maybe. I don't know why you started doing this, but you just messaged me some out of the blue. I don't know why, but you wanted to send me those naughty pictures.
Sometimes you've just got to be naughty. Can I just say as well, though, I'm going to say something, but I've put a pause so you can edit it out if you need to. Speaking of naughtiness, who was it who, after the last podcast, immediately sent me a text message saying, I just did that whole podcast not wearing any pants?
But I was, that's not naughty. I was at home. I was still wearing boxers.
Well, you say you were. I don't know. A young man came up to me with his phone and with a pretty posh set of headphones and said, "You're Brady, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he goes, "I was just listening to Hello Internet on that flight and I thought I saw you." So his name was Jake, and he listened to Hello Internet. Not only did he listen to Hello Internet on a plane, he listened to Hello Internet on a plane with me.
Wow.
With one half of the podcast. And I don't think that will ever be beaten, because the only way you could beat that would be to listen to Hello Internet on a plane with both of us. And we're actually contractually not allowed to fly on the same plane.
Oh, yeah?
Because it's like how the royal family's not allowed to put too many people in line to the throne on one flight. Because if the worst happens, like Hello Internet would just be wiped out in one plane crash. So there always has to be one of us not on the plane. So
you know what? I have to tell you something, Brady. You and your plane crash corners. So I took all these flights. Every single flight I was on, I had the exact same thought, which is that if I die, somehow I'm going to end up on some version of plane crash corner that you do. Because if I die, right, there needs to be some message that like, oh, the Hello Internet podcast is over. And it's like, oh, I'm going to be going down on an airplane, and my last thought is Brady's going to be doing a plane crash corner on Number File mentioning that CGP Grey has died. This whole plane crash corner thing, I think about it now, end my own mortality every time I'm on a plane, every plane ride.
Great.
I don't like this. Yeah?
If you die in a plane crash, I will not be doing a plane crash corner about it.
Yeah? You sure?
You can know that right now.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah? It wouldn't be extremely tempting?
No.
You're going to watch Air Crash Investigator for the flight that I was on?
You think some good friend of mine dies in a plane crash and I'm going to exploit it and make like a plane crash corner about it? That's crazy.
There's going to be like a plane crash corner on Brady stuff for CGP Grey's plane. That's all I could think of a few times.
Okay, well, if you think about that, that's fine. But just know that won't happen.
Oh, yeah?
Just let your last thoughts just before the plane smashes into the ocean. Just know that won't happen. Okay?
Oh, yeah?
Huh.
Okay. I swear, this podcast has made flying more difficult.
I find it funny, though, that your fear isn't, oh, no, I'm going to die and what's going to happen to me after death, or is it going to hurt? Your fear is, what's Brady going to do with this on the internet?
I'm not saying that that's my fear or anything, but it was just a thought that I couldn't help think on every flight that I took this summer, and there have been many flights.
There's still another one, Gray.
Yes, there is still one more. Actually, there's still at least two more. I get to pass through Dulles for, let's see, like the sixth time in this summer. Yeah,
wow.
I think this will be the sixth time I get to go to Dulles this summer. Not looking.
Do you want to give us? Do you want to give us Dulles Airport Corner? What's the latest happening there? Chewbacca, you take over from here.
I will just briefly say that I hate this airport. And we're flying to my parents, going through Dulles, and we have to spend some time in this horrible airport that, again, is just every section of it alternates from freezing cold to 85 degrees and 80% humidity. Like they managed to recreate a tropical jungle on the inside. And I'm looking at the disgusting carpet and the low ceilings and just thinking like, God, I hate this place. So we spent some time in Dulles and like, great, I'm going to leave this airport. We're just going, right? But no, Dulles always gets you. And so we're flying out of Dulles, flying down to North Carolina. And there's a huge storm, apparently, in North Carolina that we're trying to fly around. And so there's like, we're in this big, like, turbulent aircraft. I'm already feeling not very well. And now we have turbulence. And once again, thinking of the podcast, the pilot comes on after we've been flying for maybe 2 hours. And he's like, hey, everybody, we're running out of fuel, attempting to land in North Carolina because of this storm.
So I'm just going to radio Brady so he can get recording on his next plane crash corner.
Yeah. And again, as always with this stuff, I'm thinking, why are you telling me that we're running out of fuel? Well, I don't need to. Whatever your next sentence is going to be, you could have skipped the "we're running out of fuel" part of the first sentence. But anyway, so
he could have gone straight to "we're going to crash."
Well, almost as bad. he says, we have to turn around and go back to Dulles. I would have
You're-
almost rather attempted a crash landing in North Carolina than hear that we have to turn around and go back to Dulles.
Just smash it into a mountain. We'll take our chances.
Yeah. But this is why. Like, why do you tell me we're running out of fuel and then that we're going back the way that we've just come because there's apparently nowhere else to land on the eastern seaboard except Dulles? Yeah, so we turn around, we fly back to Dulles. We get there, I don't know, at like 2 a.m. or some ungodly hour, and I'm thinking, Dulles, right? It always gets you. So then we have to go to an airport. Then we had to go to a hotel and then come back to Dulles again the next day to fly out. It's just like, man, I do not like this airport, and it makes me pass through it even more than I normally should. But yeah, when they said we're flying back to Dulles, I thought, I can't believe this. I have contacted people at Google to be like, can you give me a diagram? Like what is the structure supposed to look like with these Google Plus pages? And I was like, I have no idea. Every once in a while, when I log into YouTube, I have a small heart attack because it looks, I look on the corner, it says CGP Grey, and I'm logged in, and I go to click on my videos, and there's nothing there. and every time I go, right, because my whole livelihood has just been thrown into doubt, and it's like, oh, right, of course, I have some bizarre duplicate Google Plus page that I can't get rid of because that I don't even know why, that I don't use for anything.
The problem is too, Gray, they'll get rid of it. They'll say it was stupid and they'll claw back from it.
Right.
But because I started all these channels and did all these things when Google Plus was like at its height of being forced upon us all,
right,
I'm going to be stuck with these 19,000 different multiple layered logins for the rest of my life.
Yeah. We need a go, no go for recording the podcast.
Audacity, go. Hijack, go. FaceTime, go. Show notes, go. Roger that, we are go for launch. When I arrived at Marrakesh a few weeks back now, we sat at the front of the plane, so we got off first and we got to the passport control first. And there were lots of people standing around, as there often are at these airports in exotic countries, the culture of which I don't understand. Lots of people standing around. None of them seem to be doing any work, except for one guy who was stamping passports. And because we were at the front of the queue, we got straight through. We were first ones through, absolute breeze. And I think behind us there must have been some family of 18 people who all wanted to go through together, and half of them didn't have their passports or something, because whatever happened, we went through, and then there was a long time before anyone else was going to get through. And I was waiting at the luggage carousel with my wife, and all the bags started coming out. And obviously there was no one to take them. We were the only people in the baggage hall. We were the only people. The place was completely empty. It was amazing. It was huge area, just 2 of us. The carousel filled up with all the bags it could take.
Right.
And because there was no one to take them away, that was it. So they couldn't put any more bags on the carousel. So we were just standing there watching the same bags going past, not our bags, thinking, well, we're going to be stuck here now until everyone else gets through passport control and creates some more room on the carousel. And there was still no one through. 15, 20 minutes, not a single soul had come through.
Okay, this is getting suspicious.
Yeah, it was a bit. So anyway, I mean,
how big was this plane? How far ahead were you?
It was an EasyJet plane. Everyone was in the queue. The next people behind us were standing right behind us. Everyone was standing behind us. There was obviously something.
But I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, were you on a plane with nothing but the sketchiest looking people, all of whom need interviews through customs when they arrive? Like, how on earth can you be the only people?
I don't know, Gray, but I promise I'm telling you the truth. So it got to the point where I was edging closer and closer to the little hole where all the bags come out that leads to the outside. And I started like poking my head through to see if there were other bags waiting. And around the same time, this Moroccan man poked his head through to see what was going on and why none of the bags were moving. So we kind of met eyes, and he looked into the hole and saw that I was the only person there, and he straight away knew what the problem was. And I said, I'm trying to get my bag. And I could see all these trolleys parked on the tarmac outside with all these bags on it. And he said, Which one is yours? So I ended up sort of pointed, and he walked over to the trolley, and I was like hanging my head through the hole over the conveyor belt saying, see that black one under those two red ones to the right of that blue one? And he's like, this one here? And I'm like, yeah. And he pulled that one out, and then I found my wife's and said, yeah, that second one up on the other trolley. No, not that one. No, below that one. This one, yes. And he sort of pulled it out like a Jenga piece, and all the other bags came toppling down, and he got our two bags, and then he physically passed them through the hole to me, like handed them to me hand to hand. It was brilliant. And there was still
valet service.
It was valet. And I slipped him some money. Like, I tipped him. I was like, thanks, man. You saved me a lot of pain. And then we went off through and got our cab and got our car that was waiting for us. Still no one had come through. So I would have been there forever waiting for those other people if it wasn't for that nice man at Marrakesh Airport. So spend those $2 wisely, my friend. That's all I had on me. I only had $2 on me. I felt guilty, but it was all I had in my pocket. There you go. Marrakesh Airport, thumbs up.
Yeah. Thumbs up for their valet luggage service.
Thumbs down for their passport control if you're not the first two people in the line, though.
I'm very glad that your bags came through and that you had this nice little valet experience. That's nice and all. But my mind just keeps focusing on, where were all the other people? That's the part of the story that I keep wanting to go back to. This feels like a mystery.
Yeah, don't know. You don't think about who's behind you, Gray. You crack on.
You walk fast to that passport control.
Yep.
You hope, right, there's nothing but a bunch of children and slow old ladies in front of you that you can stride on by as fast as possible without actually breaking into a run so you look like a jerk. You're like, oh no, I'm just walking fast, trying to get past everybody. Because if you're at the back of those big passport lines, forget it.
The toilet can wait.
That is a terrible time to say, oh, let me just go to the bathroom. And then you're behind 600 people.
The toilet is not an option.
This does just remind me that I made a little note about something on my last flight where I wanted to tell you that you were correct about something.
Wow.
I know you like this.
Wow.
Yes.
Brady is correct about something, corner.
We had a disagreement a while back about whether or not the self-checkout machines in the grocery stores are faster or not. Mm-hmm. Do you remember this?
Yes.
Yeah. Don't get excited because I'm not going to tell you that you're right there. You're totally wrong.
Okay.
However, I'm pretty sure I made some broad sweeping statement about how, using the machines are always faster. But let me tell you, I ran into a machine while traveling where all I could think of was I was just shaking my little fist thinking, Brady is right. This machine is terrible. And it was at Dulles Airport when I was going through customs. The United States has the equivalent of the grocery checkout machines for going through U.S. customs if you are a U.S. citizen.
Is this customs or passport control, like immigration?
I mean where they're checking your passport and seeing if they're going to let you into the country.
Well, you know they have that at most UK airports now as well.
Here's the details about these machines.
Yeah.
I'd never seen them before, and I walk up and I go, oh, okay. Well, I'm sure this is going to be great. A nice little automated machine. It certainly is going to speed up the line. No, it's not going to speed up the line. I have never seen a machine designed like this, but you are required to scan your passport. And I was standing there watching everybody else trying to scan their passport, and I'm trying to scan my passport, and the little machine goes, right? It keeps buzzing at me saying it's not scanning the passport correctly. And I'm looking around and I see maybe the 20 other people who are also using these machines. Everybody is having a hard time scanning these little passports.
Yeah.
Something, what's going on? But I was determined, I'm going to figure out this machine. I'm not going to ask the nice lady for help. I'm going to figure this out. The design of this passport scanner was that you have to hold your passport, stick it in this little tunnel, basically, for the scanner. You have to put your hand all the way in, and inside the tunnel, where you cannot see your hand, much like those secret voting boxes that we were talking about on our special episode, inside there's a little lever that you have to reach for with your hand that you can't see to pull down, and it pulls down some scanner on top of your passport. But you have to do it physically with your hand. Otherwise, the machine will not scan the passport.
Okay, that is a little bit more, that is weird.
And I thought, this is the craziest self-automated machine I have ever seen. And it did work. I pulled down the little lever so that it eventually scans my passport. It puts everything up on the screen, and I confirm, oh yes, this is me. Here are the reasons that I'm coming in, blah, blah, blah. And of course, because it's the United States, the machine also takes a little picture of you, because I'm sure it's going into a gigantic database somewhere, who knows where, but somewhere, that goes into this database. And so this machine was just taking everybody a really long time. But I figured, oh, okay, at least I figured it out. I can make it happen really fast this next time. Next time I use it, it'll be great. But no, it gives you the little ticket, and then you just get in the line totally as normal. Then you still have to talk to the regular guy who asks you all the regular questions. You just show him that you did the little auto scan of your receipt, but he also scans your passport. It was just, again, an astounding example of this like bizarre airport inefficiency. It's like, great, this machine takes longer and I still have to do all the normal things anyway.
Oh, Gray. We could do a whole podcast about how I feel about those self-passport machines. They are. When I came back into Bristol just the other day, there were 40 or 50 people waiting in like the human flesh line, and there were 5 or 6 people in the robo line. And so I got into the robo line, and the woman there who was like shepherding people through just looked at me and shook her head and said, "Seriously, it'll be quicker over there." And I just nodded and walked away. I was like, "I hear you, sister. I hear you."
That's the person to trust.
I mean, the British ones are not as stupid as that, what you just said, with all these little levers and that. And they're reasonably simple to use. I can use them. But I swear they must have some kind of brain-zapping laser, because as soon as people walk into them, they become completely incompetent human beings, incapable of doing basic procedures. And I just stand there watching them going, oh, for goodness sake, I just want to go and yank the passport out of their hand and say, put it here, look there, step there, get out of my way. Crazy.
The thing that really impressed me about these ones for the U.S. Customs was I have already scanned my passport earlier at the airport at a different machine which didn't have this mechanism. I have scanned my passport at many airports that don't have this mechanism, and almost everybody who's on this plane with me has certainly done the same thing. Why on earth would you make the situation different for the second time for almost everybody who's getting off the plane, right? Because everybody who's boarded that plane scanned their passport in one way when they were getting their tickets, and now you introduce this new, more complicated thing at the end of the flight that they have to scan. It was just like, hey, whoever made these machines, buy the scanners that were made by that other company. And then it will at least be consistent. You give people a fighting chance.
Might cost $100 more per machine though, or something. So
it may be, but I was looking at those machines and I'm looking at everybody struggling through them, and I thought, there is no way this is clearing the line faster. My suspicion is that the whole purpose of that machine is actually the part where it takes your photo. I thought, this is why they're doing this, is to build some gigantic database. It's not at all about making the line any faster.
They take your photo when you go through the flesh lane as well, though. You have to look into the little camera and they take your picture.
They have never done that if you are a U.S. citizen before.
No, okay, right.
So it used to always be, oh, we only take pictures of dirty foreigners. But now it's, oh, we also take pictures of dirty Americans. Trust nobody.
They take my photo, all my fingerprints, and then give me a 20-minute interview about YouTube videos.
Air travel, always fun. You know what makes me want to not fly United, Brady?
What?
The United Airlines safety video.
Oh, no, I know this. Because I do fly United a lot. And I know what you're talking about here.
I think I saw this stupid video 24 times this summer, and every time it felt like an eternity. Now, do you want to describe it to the people, or shall I? I'll put a link in the show notes so people can watch it.
I'm just sort of having a look at it now on mute to kind of remind myself. And the thing about it is, in this kind of ever-increasing spiral to make your airline safety video original and different to the others, which is just getting out of control among airlines, what they've done is decide to talk you through the safety of the plane, but not use a plane. So, for example, they show you how to do up your seatbelt, and it's like a person in a taxi cab doing the seatbelt there, and then there's another woman talking about the exits and things like that, and she sort of is doing origami in some kind of Japanese dojo, and then someone else is talking about sort of seating and baggage and that, and she's on the back of an open top bus in Las Vegas.
Yes.
So it's kind of some PR person's obviously said, hey man, we're going to think outside the box and just take the airline safety experience outside of the plane, man.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work.
Yeah. It's let's use every mode of transportation except the mode of transportation that you are on to explain the mode of transportation that you're on.
Yeah, I'm looking at people putting on the gas masks, and they're sitting in like a lift up a ski slope, like a cabin going up a ski slope, and now someone's doing the safety, like the life safety vests, and they're in a park full of kangaroos about how to handle a crash landing into water.
Right.
Yeah.
This video drove me crazy, and it made me crazier every single time. Every single time I watched it. Okay, look, it's a safety video. It's supposed to convey information to you about the plane. Now, granted, almost everybody who's flying on a plane with any kind of regularity already knows all of this stuff. And so if I'm in charge of the airlines, I would think, okay, we're legally required to tell some people this stuff.
Yeah.
What seems to me the obvious purpose of the safety video would be tell the things you are legally required to tell them, and do it as quickly and as simply as you possibly can to get it out of the way. But it seems like airlines decide to go with the opposite choice, which is let's try to make it fun and engaging for everybody. And I think this is just the wrong way to do it, because can anybody make a video that is fun to watch several dozen times in a row? Nobody, right? Nobody can do that. You strip all of the humor out of it. If there is any joke in it at all that works, it just dies from repeated beatings. And the airline stuff, it's just not even that funny. But this United one it absolutely kills me. It's not funny. It explains things I already know in a way that somehow manages to make them confusing because they're showing you all different stuff every time. And the one that really gets me, which for anybody who hasn't watched the video, pay particular attention to this the next time you see it. Because they want to show different people all over the world doing different things, every little scene change requires a 5-second establishing shot. So there's a woman in Italy, and they can't just cut to the woman in Italy. They have to show her walking down the street for a moment, and someone on a scooter passes her, and then she turns around the corner to then explain to you the thing. It's like, no, just cut to the person doing the thing. Do it all, with CGI or in a white room or with people just showing you stuff. But when you have to have these establishing shots, it feels like it goes on forever. And looking at the time of this video, it's 4.5 minutes long. 4.5 minutes long to convey how much stuff. Here's how you buckle up. Oh, by the way, put the air masks on when they come down. Put your seat back up when we're taking off. The end. There's not that much to actually say, but they take so long to say it. Let
me be devil's advocate for a moment.
Okay, I have one final thing to complain about, but you go ahead. You try to convince me otherwise.
Okay, I'm going to try to convince... Well, yeah. I'd sooner smash my head against a brick wall than change your mind, but let me be devil's advocate anyway. First of all, you're a bit of an edge case in how often you fly, and particularly how often you've recently flied. So you were overexposed to this video. So we have to take that into account. But let's put that to the side for a moment. Say the airlines have access to, and they probably do by this stage because airline safety videos have been around for a long time, they have access to research and information and market research which shows that airline safety videos are so samey and are so ignored by people that they are not effective anymore. And then say some accident happens where several people get injured in an accident and they file a lawsuit which says, well, we didn't do what was in the video because we didn't pay attention to the video. And we don't pay attention to the videos because you've been researching it for years and we don't pay attention. Is it possible the airlines have had it brought to their attention by lawyers that they have to do new things to make their safety videos engaging and make people look at them because they're being ignored too often? And whether they're doing it well or not, that's another argument, and whether this is tasteful or stupid or daft or well executed is another debate. But are they doing these outside the box things, not because they're trying to be wacky or they've been conned by some PR people, but because they've been legally advised to make these videos eye-catching and different so people start looking at them again?
I mean, if you're starting from the imaginary presumption that they have research that shows people don't pay attention, I mean, I guess it's possible. But you know what? I have research that shows nobody pays attention to these videos anyway. And it's called Looking Around on the Airplane. And everybody is ignoring the safety video, even these new ones.
You're just confirming my point. But also, I don't think it's a stretch to imagine someone at some point has commissioned something into people's attention to safety videos. It sounds like the sort of thing that would definitely be researched. But even if it hasn't been researched, if someone could make the case that these things are being ignored, then they are worthless. I don't know. I think what I said seems quite plausible.
There's only one part of the safety video that is different every time. And it is the most important part, which is where are the exits on this particular plane? And if you watch any of these videos, you see almost all of them do some kind of cutaway so they can drop in a separate segment about where are the exits on this plane.
Yeah.
And this is what drives me crazy about this United video in particular. And it was actually what I was going to call up is, okay, here's the one thing that's different that you need to pay attention to. And it's the moment that this woman walks into a dojo in Japan and she says, oh, I'm going to tell you about the exits. And then she just holds up on camera a piece of paper and she starts to fold it. And then they do a little joke where she, drops the paper off camera for a couple of seconds, pretends like she keeps folding, and then brings it back up. And there's this amazing origami plane that obviously nobody could do in that amount of time. But it's the only part of the whole video where there's just like seconds of silence and nothing is happening. And it is the biggest, longest, boringest run up to nothing is occurring. Before they then decide to have her segue into, let me tell you where the seats are on this airplane. So it's just crazy making to me that the worst, slowest part of the video comes right before the part when you're most supposed to be paying attention. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
I agree. It's a terrible video. I probably go on a different airlines to you because I don't have the commitment to United because of your stupid standby.
My excellent standby thing.
Excellent. Well, excellent when you're first class on the flight you want to go on. Not so good when you spend 2 weeks waiting for...
You were trying to talk me out of going standby on the way over, and I'm glad I didn't listen to you because I did get that first class upgrade, and boy, was it sweet.
Yeah, but you
sweet first class upgrade was totally worth 2 weeks of standby.
It was worth 2 weeks, was it?
Would do again. A++. First class seat, totally worth it.
If flying first class is worth 2 weeks of waiting, then good on you. You've made the right call.
When we talked last time, I felt like you almost talked me out of it. Like, oh, maybe Brady's right. Maybe I should rethink this whole standby thing. And then as soon as I got in that seat, I thought, nope, I'm not rethinking this. This is amazing.
All right, good. Well, I'm happy for you then.
But before we switch topics, I cannot let what for me is the amazing cherry on top of this pile of poop that is the United safety video, which is during the one scene when there's a family going up one of those little, what do you even call them? They're on the mountain. What would you call one of those things?
It's like a ski lift, isn't it?
Yes.
But it's like in a cabin. It's those enclosed ski lifts, not the, yeah.
There's an enclosed ski lift that they're going up. And again, establishing shot so you know where they are. It takes several seconds. There's this family is going up in a little ski lift and they look out the window, and then going down on the opposite side, there are two people that are having a fight on top of the ski lift that's going down, which I presume is some kind of James Bond reference, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, it's a safety video. There's a fight that's happening in the middle. One guy gets knocked off the top of the ski lift, and they put a Wilhelm scream for him falling to his death from the top of this lift.
There's too many cooks spoiling the broth on this video, clearly. They're trying to cram so many ideas into it. They needed...
That Wilhelm scream to me is just the perfect cherry for this. It's like, boy, there is nothing that will take me out of a movie or anything more than that stupid Wilhelm scream that is used as a sound effect in thousands and thousands of movies because audio engineers think it's funny, and it's even here in this safety video. So that for me is just the end of that.
And like... Can I just give a pre-warning here? Because I know everyone's now going to send us YouTube videos of every safety video there is. Because it's quite common for people to make safety videos that are funny, are supposed to be funny. And I've seen many of them. And I've seen like things on like Reddit and Facebook and Twitter where someone says, oh my goodness, this is the most hilarious safety video I've ever seen. I've watched many of them. I can't think of one that I actually thought was funny.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. Even ones that were like couldn't be more aimed at me. Like New Zealand has a whole bunch of Lord of the Rings themed ones.
Yeah.
At best, it is mildly amusing once, but that's it, right? If you have to watch it twice, it's the same agony, no matter what it is. I've never seen it done well. And yeah, I was actually clicking around and trying to watch a few other airline safety videos just to see, what are the comparisons? And they're all just agony if you have to watch them again and again and again.
Yeah. I've watched the British Airways animated one probably 30 times. And obviously it's mind-numbingly boring because I've seen it so many times, but I find that one acceptable. I don't get angry at that one. It's kind of I think they made a good choice.
But is it just a standard one where they just show you the things?
It's very standard. It's animated, so the people don't look real. So they're like cartoonish. But they're on a plane, and it's I don't know. I've seen it so many times. I feel like I know the people, and it's inoffensive. It looks sort of modern and now, so it doesn't look kind of staid and 1970s like a lot of safety videos can. I think they've done quite well. It's not funny. It just conveys information. It's quite clean. I think they've done all right.
Yeah, I'm just clicking around through it on YouTube right now. And this to me looks like exactly what I expect from a safety video. It's showing you the actual things you'll be using, not a taxi, not a bus in Las Vegas. And it looks boring, and they're just going to tell you what the things are. I would take that any day over a video that's trying to be clever and funny and that has establishing shots.
Yeah.
I do like the Union Jack, but I also really like the 1606 variant on the Union Jack.
Oh,
I think it looks quite good.
Yes.
Oh, look
the
at you.
1606 variant is a classic.
Are you just screwing with me? You don't know what it looks like off the
I've
top
got no
of your
idea.
head. For a minute there, I thought you really did know. I thought,
I preferred the 1608 adaptation, but the 1606 is okay.
Okay, I'm going to send it to you, and I'm going to make you look at it.
All right. Oh, yeah. So it's missing the red diagonals.
So the thing I had on my mind while I was in America is tipping. Because I live in the UK now. I've spent most of my, actually really, I have spent all of my adult life in the UK, where there still is tipping, but it is much, much less than America. And I forget how much tipping there is in America and how many ambiguous tipping situations you can wander into. So this was just a thing on my mind while I was there for a long period of time. And especially when you're in a situation where you're traveling, you're using services, you're at restaurants or you're at hotels or you're at other places. And it just comes up so often in America. And I find it absolutely exhausting. I loathe tipping. And it is not that it's not the money, right? It's not like I'm cheap and I'm thinking, oh, I don't want to tip. What I hate is this uncertainty.
Yeah.
Just the large number of people that I don't know the answer to. Am I supposed to tip you? How much am I supposed to tip you? Is this a percentage moment, or is this a couple of bucks moment, or is this like $5 kind of moment? I find it just exhausting, and it makes me want to avoid certain services. So, for example, if you go into a hotel, I will go out of my way to never speak to the concierge because I feel like if I speak to you at all, do I have to hand you money now? Do I have to hand you money at the end of my trip? Or like, is there a clock in your head of, oh, we've spoken to each other for 60 seconds and now I need to hand you $5? Like, I would just, whatever services the concierge can provide, I would choose not to partake in any of them, even if I would benefit from them because of the ambiguity of the tipping. But I feel like this is absolutely everywhere in America, and it is a very frustrating situation for me.
I am probably more comfortable with social interactions than you are.
Yeah, that's pretty fair to say.
Yeah. but I am 100% in agreement with you. And I think partly it's because I didn't grow up with a culture of tipping as well. So I am also starting further behind because there's not much of a tipping culture in Australia. Mm-hmm. But I also find it really awkward and difficult and try to avoid it. I'm a big one for, no, I'll carry these 18 bags up to my room myself.
Oh, yeah, the hotel bellman. I will and have taken bags from the bellman. Because, you know what? I don't want to go up in the elevator with you, and we're just standing here, and I just know that you're here because you're waiting for $2 from me, or is $2 even the appropriate amount? I don't even know.
I'm like you, though. I don't think I'm a cheap person, and of course I do tip because I understand that the economy has evolved in such a way that this is necessary, and I don't want to do over people who work in service, and I'm sure you're the same. Mm-hmm. So I do. It's not cheapness, and I respect that tipping has to happen. So I'm not saying no to tipping, but I do think it's very unfortunate that things did evolve this way, because it does create a lot of difficulties. And I guess the question is, if that's true, if what I said is true, and it's the same for you, and I feel like it is the same for you, why not overcompensate? Why not just hand out $5 to everyone all the time? Because then it's not going to be, you're not going to, I guess what I'm saying is err on the side of generosity and just throw tips around all the time to everyone. Why don't you do that? Or do you think you look like a bit of a douche if you do that as well? If you hand someone $5 and you weren't even supposed to tip them? Yeah.
This is exactly the problem, is you have this narrow margin in which it is correct.
Yeah.
And under or over, both of those are wrong. And both of those are awkward. And I mean, with the over tipping, I mean, what I was about to say is I would gladly quadruple the money that I spend on tips annually if I could be guaranteed to remove all ambiguity from every tipping situation in the future.
Yeah.
All right. So it is not a money issue at all.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you actually think about how much money do you ever spend on tips in a year, it's not a significant amount of money. So that's why it's not about that. But it is weird and awkward to over tip just as much as under tipping. Yeah. And this is actually a thing that I run into in the UK in the reverse, because since I grew up in America, I do have some expectations of times when you're going to tip.
Yeah.
And it can be awkward in the UK when I tip someone who is not expecting it.
Yeah.
Because then it feels like it's almost like degrading. It's like, oh, like we were just two normal human beings, but then I handed you £2 and you looked at me like suddenly I'm thinking I'm a man on a horse with a fancy top hat and I'm throwing coins on the ground for you to pick up, you street urchin. Oh, we were normal people just engaged in regular commerce before, but now I have introduced this inequality that wasn't there before. So that's why it's absolutely just terrible and awkward, and it's very hard to do right consistently.
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. There are a few places that handle it well. I've stayed at a few like resorts and places where the policy is just you don't tip, and then at the end you put a big wad of money into a box that all the staff share. I quite like that. I quite like going through a week at a resort of not tipping all the people who are bringing me drinks and cleaning the room and doing all the things. Just, no one's got any money on them. And then at the end, you just put a whole big stash of cash in an envelope and that gets distributed amongst all the people. That I always think that's a good solution. And it's also quite often with sort of toury type things. For example, when I've gone to the Himalayas a couple of times, you're not tipping the porters and the Sherpas, and then at the end you just give them one lot of money as one mega tip for the whole trip, and you've been given guidance on what a good amount of money per day is. And again, that makes things so much easier.
Yeah, that makes things way better. Yeah. But I think it's the decision fatigue of it as well. And one place that I'm aware that I use precisely because there is no tipping is Uber. So I semi-frequently use Uber to get around London. And every time I use it, I am blissfully aware of the fact that this ride does not end with me then having to decide on a tip for the person who has driven me.
Yeah.
And I guarantee I would use it way less if I had to. And I know for a fact that I would, because there's a competing service called Halo, which used to be in the UK before Uber existed. And they did have a thing that popped up at the end of every ride where you had to make a decision about how much did you want to tip the person or the driver's expected tips. And I just hated that. Like, I would way less use that service. And then when Uber came along and I realized, oh, I don't have to use the tips, this is great. Like, it just takes this burden off your mind, and it puts you back on this level of, oh, I'm purchasing services and I don't have to make this additional decision.
You're right, Gray. It's a crazy burden. I was saying to you, I went to Morocco the other day and we arrived at Marrakesh airport, and there was a driver who picks us up and drives us for 45 minutes up to the mountains to the resort. Mm-hmm. And I swear, I think 90% of my cognitive power during that entire drive was spent thinking about the tip situation. How much do I tip this person because I'm paying him this? Is he part of this staff? Will this much insulting? What currency do I use? Where's my wallet? I swear it's all I thought about for the trip. It was crazy.
In America, I need to say ahead of time, restaurants are this special legal exception because what I think practically criminally is that they don't have to pay their staff minimum wage because they fall under this category of tipped employees. And so it's like, okay, this is crazy, but it's legal. So if there's any place in America which you always tip and you just don't even think about it, it is restaurants. And my feeling with the tips in restaurants is because of the legal situation, this is non-optional. Right, you are structurally in a position where stiffing a waiter or a waitress on a tip in a restaurant in America is a huge dick move because of the way they are actually paid.
Yeah.
Right, so you have to do this. But again, like when you think about you get a meal and you're at this restaurant, it's just such an unpleasant way to end it with this little moment of, oh, I have to evaluate this other human being now on a very numerical scale that is directly with money. And oh, how much did I like the service? How much did I not like the service? And it becomes also a weird thing when you're in a big group of people, like you together, you have to decide about the tip. Because tips by definition come at the end of services, they always put a little sour note on every interaction, no matter how good it is.
Hasn't it become a bit standardized, though, with percentages when it comes to that kind of restaurant scenario? I mean, I know everyone has a different percentage.
I was looking up some numbers beforehand because I was thinking, when I went to America this time round, I was really aware that the standard tip advice for restaurants that I was seeing was in the 20 to 25% range. And I thought, wait, but I remember as a kid, like I thought it was in the 15% range. And I wanted to try to look up some data. And this tip inflation thing is definitely the case, that the average tips in the 1950s were 10%, and they just keep slowly creeping up over time of what the number is. And so then it's like, oh, great. So now I have an additional thing to worry about with tips, which is that if I'm not keeping up with the tipping news, I will just eventually become a cheapskate in comparison to everybody else because we're having an arms race in tips. The research on this seems to suggest that there's two reasons why tip inflation occurs, one of which is that in group settings, there are individuals who want to be extravagant with tips, and this ends up causing everybody else to start calibrating what an average tip is. So most people want to pay the average, but if you're going out with groups, a couple of extravagant people start to bend your notion of what an average tip is. And then the second thing is that former wait staff, not surprisingly, tend to be much higher tippers. And so as you're getting wait staff circulating through the population, they too bring up the average of what a tip is. So even then, it's like, oh, is there a standard tip? Okay, maybe. Like in my mind, I thought it was 15%, but then I arrived in America and discovered, no, like that's no longer the standard tip. Now it's at least 20%. I was like, oh, okay, this is an additional stress that I wouldn't have considered before. But even still, when I was there, I was trying to look up, like, under what circumstances should I tip people? And it is just hugely complicated and wildly disagreed upon. And the one that seems to be the most controversial is the cleaning staff at a hotel. Do you leave a tip for the cleaning staff at the hotel? Which, to me, was an amazing thing because I had never heard of this. What do you mean you're supposed to leave a tip for the cleaning staff? Aren't I paying for a hotel room and presumably the staff to clean it? Are they a whole different category of employees? Why do I tip just the cleaning staff? Why don't I tip the other people in the hotel? It seems like, to me, that one was quite a surprise but it seems like it's very standard.
It almost feels a bit like how the greeting card industry sort of creates these days and events to sell cards. All the different workers are creating sort of new tip genres that you didn't even know existed before, and now it's like, so like there was like suddenly Father's Day and Mother's Day and all these days appear. Suddenly there's tipping the toilet cleaner is a new thing, and tipping the person who replaces the toothpaste, and tipping the person who clears the gutters. And
if in America people are getting screwed over because they're in the class of employees that you don't need to pay minimum wage, you have to tip those people. There's no way around that. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe this would make like an interesting video. Let me try to find out who exactly are they. And it varies state by state. It's just impossible to know. There's no way any reasonable person can travel and be expected to have any idea of which employees fall into this category and which don't. And this just to me adds to this whole burden. But I was making a list as I was traveling around because there was one person I'll get to that just put me over the edge. And I was like, okay, I have to talk about this. But like the shuttle driver at the airport who's driving everybody around, and I happened to get off the shuttle bus first, and I gave the guy a couple dollars. And then everybody else who got off the shuttle, nobody tips him. And I also had a slight weird moment handing him the dollars. And it's like, oh, okay, I did it wrong here. This person's not expecting money. And now I feel like I've made it awkward between us because I gave him $2.
Yeah.
Was $2 too much? Was it too little? Is everybody else just being a dick? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, there's the restaurants, like there's all of this stuff. The bellmen, the concierge, all of these people. But the one that put me over the edge that I thought, I don't understand this world anymore, was I was at a buffet breakfast at a nice restaurant where we're paid for buffet breakfast. Now, the buffets are weird because you have these waiters that are sort of half waiters, and I presume that you still tip them as well on a buffet breakfast, even though they're just bringing me coffee. Like, there's literally nothing else they bring me because I get everything for myself.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm supposed to tip 20%. It seems all very confusing, but okay, fine.
20% of what if it's like included in your overall bill?
Yeah, but they had like 20% on the coffee. Oh, like, well, now I just look like a miser, right? It just looked like a terrible person.
Yeah.
But the one that put me over the edge was I went up to get an omelet in the buffet, and the omelet guy had a bowl for tips in front of him. And people were putting tips in, and that was the one I just thought, I have lost any ability to understand anything in the world. Like, am I supposed to tip the omelet guy in the buffet that I have paid for and also tip the waiters? It's just this endless confusing thing to me. And I hate it. I hate the mental burden of it. I hate the cognitive load of it. I hate the social awkwardness of it. And I hate the fundamental unknowability of it. There's just everything about it I hate.
Have you managed to put any sort of procedures or coping mechanisms in place, or has this one really got you flummoxed?
This one has me flummoxed because in the restaurants, it's like, okay, that's just easy. It's a no-brainer. I'm just going to tip the standard amount. I'm not going to vary it for service because it's not even optional. This is, as far as I'm concerned, this is a required thing. So, okay, fine. That one's really easy. And that's the one that causes me the least stress. But it's all of the other ones that I find really frustrating. And there is no solution to this at all. There's no solution to it. And it's just particularly bad in America. So it's a bit of a relief, actually, to be back to the UK. And one, not be in a situation where I'm traveling so much, so you run into those situations more. And two, it's just less expected in the UK.
Yeah. How do you don't have problems with tipping in the UK in any way? You're pretty seamless there. You know what you're doing.
I tip in restaurants, and the one that I do is I usually tip the delivery people. Like if I'm getting food delivered to the house. It's one of these things where if you just think about it too long, it just doesn't make any sense. Because like, okay, I tipped the pizza delivery guy, but I don't tip the guy who delivers all the Amazon boxes.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why is that? Is it because it's food? Is that why? Like, I feel like this is a restaurant that has happened.
The guys who deliver the pizza, in my case, are usually sort of a lot younger. They're always guys, actually, but they're always a lot younger. And I always assume they're like more exploited. Whereas the people who deliver like my groceries and a lot of my packages always seem to be quite well-to-do adults, and I assume they're being better paid. I'm probably completely wrong.
There are so many problems with tipping. And one of the things to try to cut off people in advance is that everybody thinks that they do tipping based on service, and they talk about, oh, it's this important feedback loop for quality of service. And the studies on this come back and say, no, this is not an effect, that the service that you get at a restaurant or the service that you get in any tipping situation has a less than 1% impact on average for the amount that someone tips. And all of the things that matter for changing tipping, they're just weird human prejudices. So the number one thing that someone can do to raise the amount of tips they get is be an attractive person of the opposite gender of the person who's tipping you.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, oh, is that how? It's nothing to do with service. This is just like this bizarre human bias expression machine. So once again, like people who are attractive benefit hugely, and people who are unattractive get the short end of the stick of this one. Like, well, that's not really fair. And then this is built into someone's compensation. Like, oh, that's terrible. The thing that gets me the worst with tipping is that suddenly I have to carry a bunch of cash around.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than realizing I'm in a moment when a tip is forthcoming and I have no cash on me. Because I'm really used to, in the UK, with the chip and pin cards, and now with the Apple Pay, of just, I hardly ever have any money on me. Yeah. And suddenly when you're in America, it's like, oh no, you need to always have a wallet filled with dollar bills, just all the time, because you might need to tip someone at any moment. And that is just an awful part of it too.
Tough.
There's no solution to this. I was just complaining.
World. It's a difficult world we live in. That's all there is. Have you ever had a job where you were tipped?
No, never. Have you?
No.
I should have put out a tip jar at some of my jobs. I should have done that.
Yeah.
When I worked at the library and I was getting people books, I should have just stood there really awkwardly after I handed their book for a while. Just waited for a dollar bill to cross my palm.
Gazing at your feet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Isn't that the universal symbol for please give me a tip? Is someone lingering awkwardly?
Yeah, showing you other things like, oh, here's the light switch and here's how to open a curtain.
Oh, God, I forgot about that. I have yet to successfully figure out what is the code word for I understand how to use the lights. You don't need to send someone up to my hotel room to explain to me what the bed is and where the toothbrushes go.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that person is. Is that the bellhop? Whoever the person is who comes up to the hotel room with you, I always feel like I try to say as strongly as I can, I do not require your services. I can use this key. I can figure out a room. Please don't come up.
Again, it's not cheapness, but it also gets awkward when suddenly like 2 or 3 different people get involved, and like 5 people have brought your bags up and 2 more have come to show you around, and it's, oh, hang on, now what do I do? Oh.
It's the elevator. That's the worst part, is going up in the elevator with the person. Like, oh, I have to make small talk with you. Like, can I tip you in advance to not help me? This is actually, I don't know if I've told you this before, but in London, some buildings have a porter in the bottom of the building. It's like someone who keeps an eye on the door, like in the bigger apartment buildings.
Yeah.
So I've never lived in a building like that. But my strategy has always been that if for whatever reason I end up in a big apartment building where they have a porter at the bottom, I am going to pre-tip that person their Christmas bonus with the explicit instructions of, please don't think that I'm a terrible person, but I just want to be able to walk in this door every day and just ignore you and pretend that you're not here. And I will give you a bigger Christmas bonus than anybody right now, up front, in advance, so we can avoid a year's worth of awkwardness. Here is your bonus. I just want to walk in. Please don't ever say, hello, Mr. Gray. I just want to walk right past the desk and go to the elevator. Here's some money. Just pretend I am the invisible man and we will both be happier. That's my plan for a porter.
What happens like when someone is filling in, or it's Tuesdays when Jeff comes in and work and then Sally comes in for 2 months?
I will pay those people in advance to ignore me as well.
Right.
That's I will eventually be extorted for my invisibility, and I will be happy to pay it.
You're like this weird eccentric billionaire that people are like, look, he gives you lots of money, but you mustn't look at him.
Perfect. That sounds great. If I become that eccentric billionaire, I will be a very happy man. English is this horribly messy language, and you don't have necessarily super consistent grammar rules everywhere. So it's reasonable to be confused about what is the true state of this, because there is no true state of it.
There is no better example of that for me. And I don't want to start a whole talk about this now, but there's no better example of what you just said to me than the Oxford comma.
Oh, yeah. There's a holy war waiting to happen.
I know. I'm on the opposite side to you on that one, and I have absolutely no justification for it other than it's just what I was taught to do, and the other way seems wrong to me. And I can hear the argument for the other side, and it makes absolute perfect sense to me. And I say, yeah, you're right. Everything you say is logical. Yeah, that comma should go there. And yet I just refuse to do it because it's just not. It's just I think it's wrong, and I have no explanation other than it's just. That's my rule.
I was taught no Oxford comma in school as a kid. That was really nailed into us. As an adult, I have broken free the shackles placed upon me by my education, and I will use the Oxford comma.
Yeah.
But you're never completely free of the shackles in your mind, because even when I write out the Oxford comma, I have to do it somewhat intentionally, and it will still look weird to me.
Yeah.
But I think it's the way of the future. We have to go with this Oxford comma. But I can completely understand your side of this, of just like it just feels wrong, even though it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's like someone who has a really religious upbringing and then decides to become an atheist. I still think even that person, if they're an atheist for the rest of their life, every time they declare their atheism, they probably think, "Sorry about that, God. It's just the way I think. All right, I'm sorry. Don't hold it against me." I just don't believe in you.
I am sure you will receive no feedback on that remark, Brady, none whatsoever.
I think the Oxford comma will get people more inflamed than the whole atheism thing. So
yeah, without a doubt, Oxford comma will be more of a religious war than actual religion.
I do like swimming.
Oh yeah?
Swimming's really good for me creatively. Like that's where I have all my best ideas in. Have we ever discussed this? I have all my best ideas in water. That's why I have really, really long showers, because that's where I just sit and think, or stand and think.
Okay, that makes sense, because when I last visited your house, you were discussing with me this engineering problem that you were having, where you wanted to have a minimum of 60-minute, 90-minute long showers, hot showers, and the plumbers were telling you about how this was not possible, and you were basically saying, make it possible. And there were going to be additional boilers that were installed on the upper levels of your house to satisfy the enormous quantities of hot water that you require for your morning shower. But this makes more sense now, because if you're having your best ideas there, this is like a business expense. So this makes way more sense. Way more sense.
Yeah. Just so that people don't leave comments and email me, because that would be just a real pain in the butt. I do not have 60-minute showers, and there was no talk of installing another boiler for me to have long showers.
That is a lie. There were discussions of additional boilers.
You've misinterpreted or misunderstood a few things there. But I do have unusually long showers, and my desire for long showers was a factor in deciding some of the equipment we had installed in terms of pumps and things.
Right, yeah. And the water reserve.
There was not. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the local water company had to build a new reservoir, and I agreed to fund it on a Kickstarter so that they could I could have my showers. Yeah. Anyway, I do have very long showers.
But all your best ideas come in water.
Yeah, I do. I feel more creative in water for some reason, and I don't want to stop now before I sound any more like a lovey darling.
No,
yes.
it's
my most creative moments are when I'm in the water. Oh, darling.
It's just because you're separated from all the other stuff. Taking a shower, it gives your brain a little moment to relax and make some other connections. And
maybe
swimming is going to be the same thing, right? With swimming, you are forced to be separate from other stuff.
Yeah.
It's like when I go to the gym, I'm very conscious of not listening to podcasts, not having something that occupies my mind. It's not quite the same as being in the shower where your brain really is just all on your own, because I'll listen to music instead. But it's like 25% that. So I'm not surprised that swimming is when you have all your creative ideas. Yeah. So more swimming for Brady.
I was going to say the shower is one place where you can't sort of be on the internet and on Wi-Fi, but that's not true for Destin. Destin has FaceTimed me from his shower before. That's not even a lie.
I would believe it. I would totally believe it.
It was family friendly, by the way, before people make silly comments. But
let their imaginations run wild, Brady.
So I wanted to ask you if you've ever been in a car crash.
Yeah, I was in a car crash. I guess, I don't know, maybe almost 10 years ago now, 8 years ago. It's been a long time, but yeah.
This is something I did not know about you. Is it something you ever talk about, or is it sort of a private matter? Or
No, it's just, I mean, just like, it's a car crash. We were, my wife and I were T-boned going across an intersection. And yeah.
All right. Anyone hurt, or were you okay? Or
It was one of these things. It was shockingly lucky because, one, the guy T-boned us directly outside of the police department. So there were just police and people there immediately on the scene, which is very reassuring because they were in the building right across from where it happened. We were also very lucky because the car almost flipped over. And if it had, it would have landed on a bunch of children who were waiting for a school bus on the other side of the intersection.
Oh.
And then to top it off, the thing that was quite relieving to me was that it was a Toyota Prius that we were in. And my wife and I will never, ever rent or drive a car that does not have side impact airbags now, because the medical people on the scene were like, yeah, your wife would have died if you didn't have side impact airbags here. I would have been fine and my wife would have been dead. So if you're getting a car, check out and make sure they have side impact airbags. It is a necessity for us at this point. So always cheery.
Where were you? It was in America, was it?
Yeah, it was on one of our road trips in America.
Has it changed your attitude to driving?
Yeah, a little bit. I've been a little bit more gun shy about driving ever since then. But the problem is also that this was the last big road trip that my wife and I did, and it just so happened that very naturally I have driven very, very little since then normally, because I've been living my whole life in London. I very rarely visit America. Where my parents happen to be, I usually don't need to drive very much at all. So I haven't driven a whole lot since then, and it's a combination of just not needing to and also being like slightly hesitant about driving because of that. But the autos are coming soon, so I don't really have to worry about it.
Yeah.
A couple of years, it's all set.
Well, they'll be smashing into each other all the time when someone hacks the network.
Nah, I'm not worried about. But I've honestly been just ticking down the time until autos are available, because I can't wait to do another road trip in a self-driving car. Like when I can get my hands on a real self-driving car, I will definitely take the time to do another road trip, because that will seem like magic, but magic that I have been waiting for my entire life. Like I cannot wait to do that. Hurry up, autos.
I've just got a quick one here from Elia from Bern in Switzerland. Just saying, I know I can't possibly one-up some of the other submissions to the corner, but just for the sake of diversity, I wanted to let you know that I'm a corporal in the Swiss military, and I listen to the podcast a lot while driving to the shooting range. It helps calm me down and focus. So I just thought that was a nice one. I'm really fascinated by the Swiss Army.
Yeah, why?
So, Ilya, if you want to email again, Ilya, tell me all sorts of stuff about what it's like being in the Swiss Army and all those hidden bases you have. And do you get given, do you have a Swiss Army knife? Do they give you all a Swiss Army knife? I love Swiss Army knives.
They have to have a Swiss Army knife.
I want to know more about the Swiss Army. This email was too short.
It would be madness if they didn't have Swiss Army knives in the Swiss Army.
Like standard issue. And do they get to choose color, or do they all have the red handle?
Nah, it's got to be red. Military is a uniform. Everybody gets the red handle one.
I think a Swiss Army knife was one of the best presents I ever got from my dad.
A Swiss Army knife is the best present that any father can get his son. Right? As soon as a kid's old enough to be trusted with something sharp, Swiss Army knife is the way to go. Do you still carry a multi-tool?
I don't carry it with me, but I've got a Swiss Army knife here on my desk that I use all the time, but I don't carry it with me around, like away from home. But I use it a lot. Like it sits on my desk in my pen pot. That's how often I use it. So
the thing about like a father giving his son the Swiss Army knife thing is you immediately realize all the circumstances under which it is actually quite handy to have a little tool around you. Like as soon as you have it, there are a million circumstances under which you want to use it. Swiss Army knives, very cool.
They are cool. So let us know if you have one, Ilya. There we go. So there's some listeners. I've got lots more. Keep them coming. I really enjoy them, and I'll try and dribble a few more out over time as Gray lets me. Can I do a quick plane crash corner, Gray?
I couldn't possibly stop you.
Well, before we do this, let me tell you this. Let me give you the prelim here.
Mm-hmm.
My wife was away for the weekend a few weekends ago, and It just so happened that coincided with a stamp and postcard fair coming to like a local school where I was. So all these like, you know how these things work.
I don't know how stamp and postcard fairs work. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Basically lots of dealers of, stamp sellers and postcard sellers and things of this genre.
Oh, okay. It's like a trade show.
Like a trade show, kind of. Yeah, like that. So
Got it.
get a big school gymnasium and they all set up loads and loads of tables and they sell their wares. And I love this. And because my wife was away, because my wife's like a real get-to-the-point kind of woman, whereas I like to just browse for hours and hours.
I can see that. I can definitely see that.
Yeah. So I said, this is brilliant. So I just went there for hours and hours and I just sat in the chairs and went through all the postcards. I'm not that into stamps, but I am into a lot of that's kind of, what do you call all this stuff? What's the word? The fill-in? I don't know. Stuff to do with postage and stuff like that. I really enjoy.
Philology.
Anyway, I was going through all this stuff. I was having a great time. And then suddenly I saw a little section in one of these tables, and it was called, it just had written Crash Mail. This was a new thing for me. Now if you switch to video, I got well into this. I got well into this.
We got to switch to video now. Okay.
We've got to switch to video because I made some purchases. Let me show you what I purchased.
I wish, Brady, I had been recording the video of my screen when you said, "Let me make some purchases," because you had just the brightest twinkle in your eye. You were so excited, like a little boy, with this. I can't wait to see what this is.
These are in their protective plastic sleeves, but you should be able to. You tell the viewers what you see. Can you get a good look at that or not? There's.
It looks like I'm looking at an envelope. And it says, well, it's his handwritten address on it, and says damaged in plane crash in 1955.
That's
I can't
right.
read the name of the place.
There's a stamp. It's Hollywood, but not that Hollywood. It's a different Hollywood. So there's that, and that damaged in plane crash thing is like stamped on it. There's like a handwritten letter, and here's some more. Mm-hmm. There's another letter. And that one you see it says there, salvaged mail from an air crash in Prestwick in 1954. And this one here was in a shipwreck here, and it's got a stamp on it saying damaged by immersion in seawater, and it looks all damaged, like when you see it.
Yeah, it does. It looks exactly like what you would ask a Hollywood person to make up as a prop for a damaged piece of paper.
There's another one, and here's one last one. This one's got scorched. This one's in terrible condition.
Yeah, this one looks like it was in a fire or something.
So basically,
now you are reading the personal correspondence of the dead from plane crashes. That's what you're doing?
It's not the personal correspondence. If you don't have to look at me anymore if you don't want to. You can, or you can.
I don't know, Brady. It's so weird. I'm gonna minimize you.
Basically, it turns out these things called crash covers or crash mail is a whole subgenre of collecting.
Oh, I love the world sometimes.
When a plane crashes, quite often it is carrying postage, obviously, airmail in bags underneath the plane. And if the mail is recoverable, what happens is the mail agency will get it and they'll stamp on it with a stamp saying this was in a crash, often because you need to explain why it was delayed or why it looks a bit worse for wear and things like that.
Right.
The person still receives their letter. They'll open it and read it and do what they want with it. But sometimes the envelope, not the letter itself, but the envelope is retained, finds its way into these collecting communities and becomes quite a cherished item. This is like a letter that survived a plane crash is considered a collectible thing, an interesting thing. And I found that so fascinating. I got so taken by the idea of it, of these little mementos that had gone through this adventure and come out the other side, that I couldn't help myself, and I spent more money than I should have buying them. And I've been looking up a little bit about the actual crashes that these letters were in, and I'm planning on, I might write a blog or something, and all about them and tell their story, because I've gotten really into it. And I don't know, I'm not going to rule out maybe even buying some more if I get a little bit addicted. But for now, these 5 will do. And I'll take some pictures of them and we'll put them in the show notes so people can have a look at them as well. But I just thought it was a nice thing and something different for Plane Crash Corner.
And it might not be quite the right fit, but this feels almost like it could be a bit of a Lagniappe video on something for objectivity. I know that objectivity focuses, on Keith and his work, but
Yeah.
This feels like it could. There's something to talk about here of these objects
you're right.
as representative
You're right.
of these events.
Yeah, you're right. In fact, that's exactly what I'll do. I feel stupid that I didn't think to do it. I was thinking, if only I had a YouTube channel that has something to do with old objects. I kind of lose track of them sometimes.
It's understandable.
That's exactly what I'll do it for. Yeah. You're right. I can't believe I hadn't thought of that. I will do it. I mean, obviously, most of the objectivity videos do focus on the Royal Society, but there's no hard and fast rule, and we do sometimes freestyle it elsewhere. So I'll do it on my personal objects and tell the story of these envelopes one day. Good idea. You're good at good idea, Gray. You should make YouTube videos for a living.
I should give that a go. I hear that I'm mostly a podcaster these days.
Well, it seems like it, but you are an online Swiss Army knife.
It's very generous of you.
Let's quickly try my new experimental corner as the final corner in Brady's Corner of Corners.
Uh-huh.
I suggested that we talk about things we were obsessed with as a kid, as a little corner.
Yeah, you brought this up last time, and you also messaged me this morning asking me to try to think about things that I was fascinated with as a child that I am still fascinated with as an adult. And I was having a difficult time with this, and I felt like you were getting really frustrated with me over instant message, which is many of our conversations.
We are often on different wavelengths with our instant messaging. That's why quite often when there's something I want to talk to you about, you're like, oh yeah, send me a message. I'm like, can I just call you?
Yeah, you know what? I will give you carte blanche to just call me. You can just call me anytime.
I would never call you with that warning, Gray.
No, you can just call me. It's fine. It's fine. I'll see that happy Brady face on my phone. And unlike every other time when my phone rings and I assume, oh God, it must be some kind of emergency, I think I can eventually train myself to then think, oh no, it's just Brady and we need to talk on the phone because we can't really talk very well on Instant Messenger because I am terrible at understanding what you're trying to tell me.
Have you come up with something that you think might fit? And I'll tell you if you've done well or not. I understand you don't yet understand this corner, so I won't judge. But tell me, and I don't blame you for not understanding it, because basically the nature of this corner is just what I want.
The nature of this corner is read Brady's mind.
Yeah, basically, yes.
Okay, so I had something broad that you didn't like, but then I realized, oh, actually, maybe there is a little sub thing here. But as a kid, I was always fascinated by robots. I always just loved robots as a kid. I had lots of little robot toys.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
as you do as a kid, like you'd think about robots and an amazing future with robots and maybe one day being a robot. And like that was the kind of stuff that I know the kid me used to think about and that adult me still does think about and has the feeling of, the future kid me was waiting for is finally arriving. But that I am still very interested in developments in robots in the modern world. Does this fit what you were looking for? Is this good?
Yeah. Did you have of all your robot toys, did you have like a favorite, like one that sticks in your mind the most? Like your
I had so many related robot toys. I had tons of Transformers and I had just lots and lots. I remember like in woodshop class, you had to build something and I tried to build a robotic arm and was very sad that of course it's just made out of wood and it's not a real working arm that can do anything. I'm just trying to pull it up here because when I was last in America, my parents were trying to go through some of the stuff that they had left over from my childhood. And one of the things that I was going through was, as I mentioned before on the show, that my mom was a flight attendant for United for very many years. And when I was a little kid, she used to bring me toys from Japan because Japan was her regular flight. And she brought me, when I was a little kid, these Transformer robots, but they were also the letters of the alphabet. I had those for forever, and I absolutely loved them as a little kid. And it was it was quite the blast from the past as a grown-up to find a box full of these things when I went back and I was going through some of my old stuff in my parents' house last time I was there.
Would you describe yourself as having more of a collector's attitude to the robots, or were you into playing with them and like bashing them against each other and making them do things? Or would you like to sort of display them and catalog them and have them on the shelf and collect the set and that sort of thing?
No, I was totally into playing with them as a kid. I was not a collector kid. I've always been rather rough with the objects that I owned.
Right.
So no, I was not displaying them prominently.
Did you ever make robots like, like kind of Lego Meccano type things?
No, I never really made robots, but I always was very interested in computer programming, and I was always frustrated by some of the limitations at the time of, like, you can't really do anything with this in the real world. And I do look with envy at some of the stuff that's available for kids these days with relatively simple robotic tools that are programmable. And I think, oh man, I would have loved that as a kid, but it was not available to me then.
Were you sort of like a young visionary and you were aware that the robots of the future wouldn't be these kind of, humanoid C-3POs and they were more likely to take a different form? Or was little naive Gray thinking we'd all have like Bicentennial Man living in our house and fetching coffee and things like that?
No. I definitely, even as a kid, was always thinking like, oh, these Star Wars robots, they're fun, but they're almost like trolls or elves. They're not real. That this is not what people working in robotics are really going for.
Right.
So I was very interested in like some of the very primitive robotic stuff that was around. But I was aware when movies were just being movies, like the Johnny Five movies, like Short Circuit with Johnny Five alive. It's like, okay, this is just, like, it would be awesome if robots were like this, but this is just a total fantasy. Even though robots are a real thing, but this is not a real representation of what they are.
Robots goes on Gray's list.
But so now my understanding is that this corner is really just stuff Brady wants to talk about corner. So what did you want to bring up?
My one for the list today that I was obsessed with is going to be extinction. The whole idea of animals going extinct, like, completely fascinated me as a child.
Yeah?
I just thought it was like, it had everything. It had like nature and drama and, death. And
Did it bring up your own mortality as well?
No, I don't. I very rarely extrapolated the extinction of animals to the extinction of humans. I think that's something that perhaps came later. Obviously dinosaurs are foremost in a young Brady's thinking when he's thinking about animals that go extinct. But also, as a young Australian, I think the pin-up boy for extinction is the Tasmanian tiger. So the thylacine, as it is also known. So as a little boy in Australia, besides dinosaurs, of course, the pin-up boy of extinction is the Tasmanian tiger.
I am unfamiliar with the Tasmanian tiger.
See, I thought you were going to say, of course, like that's a bit of a cliche. But then it's one of these moments where I realised this is an Australian thing. The thylacine. The last one died, I think, in 1936. And it's like...
Oh, I do know this thing. I do know this.
Yeah,
I've seen pictures of this.
It is one of the... Along with like something like the dodo, I think it's one of the cliched animals that went extinct. Animals. So that's obviously a real favourite of ours. And because I could go to like the South Australian Museum as well and see like a stuffed one. So to see a stuffed one and be told they no longer exist, that was quite a powerful thing. And I think extinction still has quite a powerful hold certainly over my brain. What do you think about extinction? Are you kind of this kind of, pragmatic, well, it's part of, the way the nature works? Or do you think of it as a kind of potent thing as well that has an effect on you?
I mean, it's both things. The problem is, I think the term in the industry is talking about charismatic megafauna, that we have as humans great overemphasis and concern for charismatic big animals. And we are much more concerned about the extinction of, say, pandas, even when pandas seem to be doing everything they possibly can to make themselves extinct. Pandas just want to lay down for a long sleep, and humans will not let them because we love them and they're adorable. So it's like extinction is a very broad brush thing. Whereas there are many creatures where it's like, oh, mosquitoes, if I could snap my fingers and make them all extinct, I would. So it depends on who you're talking about with extinction.
Would it be bad if mosquitoes went extinct? Are they one of these things where, but they're an important part of this whatever cycle, or are they just bad news all around?
They're just bad news all around.
They're bad boys, are they? Right.
The thing that I've looked into it is that people usually argue about, there's so many things that eat mosquitoes, but there's nothing that mosquitoes are the majority of its diet.
Okay.
So animals would, they'd figure things out if the mosquitoes were gone. They would just eat slightly more of something else. And I'm frankly much more concerned about the suffering of humans than I am about the suffering of mosquitoes, right? Or a bird somewhere being slightly more hungry, so it has to eat an additional caterpillar. Like, in the grand scheme of things, I'm going to say that the human suffering matters more because humans are able to conceptualize the suffering.
But doesn't the balance then get thrown out? Like you say, we'll just eat the bird will eat an extra caterpillar, but then suddenly too many caterpillars get tipped over the balance, and then this dies and that dies. And so whenever we mess with things for what we think is the greater good, don't we always muck it up?
What do you mean? What do you mean always? Like, have you seen Civilization? Civilization is nothing but us constantly messing with stuff, and it's a net gain. I think it's just easy to focus on the times that we've messed stuff up.
What are some animals? What are some animals we've driven to extinction?
Okay, well, but now you're talking about a specific thing about with extinctions. You're saying whenever we mess with anything.
You gave the example of getting rid of all the mosquitoes. I'm not saying we shouldn't build roads or have cities or have running water, but I'm talking about, you said you'd be happy to get rid of all the mosquitoes.
Yeah, I would without a doubt. I would without a doubt snap my fingers and roll the dice on getting rid of all the mosquitoes.
I'm not even saying you're wrong, Gray. You're probably right. I'm just wondering if you can, for my intellectual curiosity, tell me another animal that we wiped out. It's quite possible we have. I don't know. Maybe there is an animal that was just bad news and we got rid of some little bad bug or something.
It wouldn't be an animal. My go-to example is polio, although you can argue whether or not polio is alive or not. But that is something that we certainly drove to extinction. And you know what? No one's crying sad tears over polio and how it knocked over the internal ecosystem of humans. Mm-hmm. Or I just think like any kind of parasites, that you try to get rid of in human populations. Like we've what is it? It's like tapeworms in the United States are basically extinct. And you know what? The ecosystem in the US isn't worse because of that. I'm not going to rule out extinction as universally bad. It depends on what's going extinct.
All right. I was.
Don't tweet me, environmentalists. I'm not interested.
No, that's right. I didn't realize because I went onto Wikipedia to look at some extinct animals beforehand because I'm no expert. One of the top things that came up was that there was a whole page dedicated to animals from our good old favourite Reunion Island that have gone extinct.
Oh yeah.
Which I didn't realise it was such a famous island that it has its own extinction page. So I thought, and I'm not going to go through the list, but I thought I'd give a special shout out to the Reunion swamp hen.
Yeah.
Just because I like arbitrary things.
You do love your arbitrary things.
I know we've got a soft spot for the African penguin because there's one named after you.
Right.
But I was wondering whether or not you'd let me name the Reunion swamp hen the official bird of the Hello Internet podcast.
No. Now you're just, if I give you an inch, on this, Brady, you'll be naming everything the something or other official thing of Hello Internet.
How does it affect you? That we have an official bird?
I don't even know how it affects me. But shouldn't clearly the penguin be the official bird of all the animals you have to pull out of the hat? Why is it going to be a penguin?
Well, no, I think it should be the Reunion swamp hen.
Right, yeah.
And I'm sticking with it. And if you can't give me a better reason why it can't be, and if we can't have an official bird of the podcast,
this is the Google thing all over. I don't have any reasons. I just feel resistant to it for some.
Like if we were going to have like an official flag, obviously that has to be a joint decision, and like things like the name and logos and things. Mm-hmm. But surely an official bird of the podcast, which you couldn't give two hoots about. You can just let me have an official bird of the podcast, can't you? Like you have official... I guess the official flower of our podcast, like our flora, should probably be that emoji you always send me. But I don't think... I want to go with the Reunion swamp hen as our official bird because I also think it will be a really good trick question in pub quizzes of the future when people say, what is the official bird of Hello Internet? Everyone will say the African penguin.
Right.
And it's like, no, that's a trick question.
I see what you're going for.
It's actually the Reunion swamp hen.
Right.
The extinct Reunion swamp hen.
This is like the, what animal are the Canary Isles named after? It's like, oh no, it's not birds, it's not canaries, it's dogs, it's canine.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's what you want? All right, fine. For pub trivia purposes, you can have your Reunion swamp hen.
Excellent. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is I want to talk to you about Reunion swamp hen t-shirts. No. No, I was looking up other. Now that we've cleared that up, I wanted to. I also didn't realize this because I'm obviously don't know enough stuff, especially about America. But I didn't realize the California grizzly on their flag is extinct.
I didn't realize that either.
Since the 1920s, California grizzly. Look it up.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. California grizzly bear. But I mean, we still have grizzly bears.
Yes, but not that one. Not that iconic one.
An extinct subspecies of grizzly. But it looks like a grizzly bear. I couldn't. Oh, sorry. I'm looking at this picture thinking, I can't tell the difference between this and a grizzly bear, but I'm looking at a picture of a grizzly bear. So that might not be a fair comparison. So I was looking at this picture and I was like, that looks just like a grizzly. But the caption was, this is a grizzly, which is the closest living relative to the thing that we don't have. Let's see. Were they bigger? Oh, it was the biggest bear ever. Oh, see, that's disappointing. If it was smaller, then it's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. But if they're bigger than modern grizzlies, then that's terrifying.
Yeah,
that's a loss for hikers in the woods.
Because Americans love things that are big.
Yeah,
you know, our bears are bigger. Our bears are 10% bigger. Do you know one thing I always notice when I'm in America compared to other countries? How much more often the merits of food is advertised by the size of it.
How else are you supposed to measure food, Brady?
Well, but exactly, but it's never like this is the healthiest or this is the most delicious or this. It's always this is 20% bigger than the other one or it's now 50% bigger than it was last week. You now get 2 and it's even cheaper. It's always like it's volume.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how else you would measure food.
No.
That's the relevant thing with food.
I was looking up other American animals that became extinct because you only really care about America most of the time.
Yeah, that's fair. as the expat.
The Jamaican rice rat.
Uh-huh.
Could we have an official rice rat?
No, we can't have an. See, this is exactly.
I promise this wasn't planned beforehand. This is just coming to my head now. But I did notice there were lots of different kinds of rice rats.
Yes, but
so if there are lots of different rice rats, we should have an official rice rat.
The thing is, you don't have to plan it ahead of time. This is just what happens with you. I'm like, don't get me wrong. I wasn't thinking that you were scheming about how can you get an official rice rat. I just know this is the path down which we have started. Now that I have given you an inch and we're going to have an official everything for the podcast, and several podcasts from now, we're going to have a little section where you decommission the rice rat because you realize how ridiculous it is, or because the rice rat community didn't respond to you with the gratefulness that you thought you should have received. Like that's where this is going. That's where this is going.
I think it would be brilliant to have an official rice rat. How many podcasts can claim to have official rice rats? And imagine then if all other podcasts all decided they would, like another one decided that they would have the marsh rice rat as their official rice rat.
Yeah.
I don't even know what a rice rat is.
I'm not even looking at the page because it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter what it is. What it is it's a Brady fascination at the moment.
All right. Well, I'm calling it the Jamaican rice rat is the official rice rat of the podcast. I won't hear otherwise. Anyway. We must get an official flag of the podcast, Gray.
Yeah, we do have to work on that.
We must do that.
We do have to work.
It could have a little Jamaican rice rat in the center of it.
No, we already have 2 designs that we're talking about. We have to narrow down from the 2 that we were discussing.
That's news to me. That's very good news. You'll have to tell me what those 2 are.
You sent me the 2.
No, I sent you one the other day, and you said no. I want to think about it, and you never got back to me.
Oh, that sounds possible.
Anyway, I was talking about extinctions at some point, but I think we've probably. We'll just add that to my list of things I was obsessed with as a kid, along with volcanoes. And
I think we have extincted that topic.
It is. We're done. There was an auction today, I believe it was in London, of movie memorabilia.
Mm-hmm.
One of the items that only half jokingly I was talking with our friend Matt Parker about maybe we should go halves and buy. I think he was serious, and I wasn't unserious. Was the sports almanac prop from the Back to the Future movies.
Ooh.
Nice, eh?
Now that would be a cool thing to own.
It would be. Like, Matt was basically saying, does anyone want to chip in with me for it? And I kind of replied saying, haha, yeah, I'll do it. Like, that's a cool thing. And made a few jokes. But I was half hoping he'd get back to me and say, seriously, we should do this. But do you know what? I think he was thinking the same thing without admitting it, because he followed the auction live. And I think he may have bid, because then he said to me, he texted me later and said, I didn't get the almanac. Were you the other person? Like, I think he thought I was bidding against him.
What did it go for in the end?
It actually went for about £4,700, I think.
It's not crazy numbers.
Yeah, it's too expensive. I can't buy that, but
It's no Magna Carta, is what I'm saying.
no, you would fly that economy.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You just put that in the pouch in front of you next to the safety card.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, if I was an eccentric millionaire with a big house, I might bid on that sports almanac prop and have it framed somewhere in the house. Like that's cool enough. Like, I really like that as an object, and it's a fun prop because it's so pivotal to the movie as well. It's not just oh, here's an item that's iconic from the movie, but that everybody uses. It's like that's like the sports almanac moves the plot. So I could definitely see displaying that in a house.
I'm half regretting that we didn't all get together and try and pitch in for it now. If we got
but if we're pitching in for it, I wouldn't want to share it with you and Matt Parker. And frankly, a third of £4,000 is more than I would be willing to actually pay for it. I wouldn't go in on that. And we'd have to rotate it between houses. It's terrible.
Well, it could have just been like an investment. We could have put it in a safety deposit box. And
then none of us appreciate it. It's an investment. It's like, well, I have actual investments to invest in, as opposed to something like that. It's not you couldn't sell that to me as an investment vehicle. The whole thing about it is it's cool. Investment vehicles aren't cool.
Oh, you're sounding like my wife now.
Do you mean reasonable? And opposing you? Is that what you mean when you say I'm sounding like your wife?
Opposing me and making perfect sense, yeah.
When you're sitting at the kitchen table trying to pitch Marty McFly Sports Almanac as an investment opportunity, and she's thinking, no, that's not a good idea.
No, she would support it. But the thing is, I have this incredible collection of framed, autographed astronaut photographs, and they're currently sitting in this huge locked box in a whole other city. And she's always saying, and I spent a fortune on it over the years putting together this collection, but I'm too scared to put it on the walls because I don't want the sunlight to fade all the photos. And because, it's got all the men that walked on the moon autographed and stuff like that. And she's like, you got to get them out and enjoy them. It's silly having them in a box. I mean, she doesn't like the look of them anyway. I think she's quite happy not having them in the house. But for my sake, she says, you should put them in your office or something because they mean so much to you. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to ruin them or have anything happen to them. And
we were discussing this on my visit. I'm with your wife on this one. Yeah. You should display at least some of them. Every day, Brady, every day you are one step closer to the grave and your inability to enjoy those photographs. Why not put them up on the walls and enjoy them while you can?
Something is seriously wrong in my life when I'm being given seize the moment advice from CGP Grey.
Well, it's just, this to me is just it's just the worst aspects of having things. You're just a hoarder at this stage, Brady. Like, that's all you are. You're just hoarding signed photographs of astronauts. When you're telling this story, just for the listeners here, when I visited you at your house, you showed me a trunk full of photographs.
Oh, that wasn't even the good stuff, Gray.
But this is what I mean. Now when you're telling me this story, it's like, oh, there are other trunks in other cities with more photographs in them. You already showed me what I thought was an ungodly number of photographs. So you're just a hoarder and you're not even enjoying it.
I'm a collector.
That's why I'm telling you, Greg. Put them on your walls.
I'm not a hoarder. I'm a collector.
You're not a hoarder in the sense of to walk into your office, I didn't have to walk by stacks and stacks of signed astronaut photographs up to the walls in every direction. But you say collector, but I'm going to say hoarder because you're just not enjoying the things. This is why I'm telling you, put them out in your office, frame them, have them up so that you can enjoy them. And if the sunlight fades 10 of your precious photographs, you have enjoyed them while they are up.
There are other ways to enjoy things other than having them directly in front of your eyeballs, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you enjoy the notion that you have locked them all away in your hoarder boxes and stashed them in caches around the world in different cities, I guess if that brings you pleasure, you go right ahead. You go right ahead and do that. But then I never want to hear again your comments about your regrets and your worries about hanging them up. You're conflicted about this. That's why I'm trying to help you through this conflict. Put them on the walls. I'm telling you to decorate. You should do it.
I could make a lovely little museum in my second office, couldn't I? Like a little display room where people could come and admire them.
Yeah, you totally could. We discussed this possibility. I really wish that you would do it. But you're not. You're just going to hoard them forever. And then you're going to die, and they'll look just as good on your deathbed as they did the day that you got them. The end. The end of Brady.
You remember in the last podcast we spoke about car crashes and you spoke about your car crash?
Mm-hmm.
We had, and I kid you not, a listener who had a car crash as that section of the podcast started and they were listening to it in their car.
Okay, this is the weird thing about the numbers with the podcast that I have a hard time thinking about.
Yeah.
When we were having that discussion, this thought actually passed through my mind.
Really?
It did pass through my mind. It's not like the videos where you have a pretty good sense of where is someone when they're watching one of your YouTube videos. The answer is they are bunking off from work and watching one of your videos, if the analytics are anything to go by. Right?
Yeah.
90% of the traffic comes from people during work hours at work procrastinating. This is what the whole YouTube economy is built on.
Yeah.
But the podcast, they go out in the world and people are doing different things.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was taking a look at our analytics the other day, and we can roughly say that we might have like 250,000 downloads an episode now. Podcast analytics are always crazy, but I think that's fair to say that that's what the episodes get. And so there's just like the whole realm of human experience is potentially out there happening when people are listening to the show just because the numbers are that big.
Yeah.
And so
you're not as surprised as I would have thought, but that's because you're a smart guy and you've already thought it through.
I'm not surprised, but it's a little weird to get confirmation of a thing that has crossed my mind. I mean, here's the morbid part of it. Has someone died listening to the podcast in a car crash? Because you're not going to hear from them.
Or just died at all. Just
Don't take this responsibility too seriously, Brady. But we might very well have been the last two human voices that someone heard. It just chills me thinking about that.
Wow. You've really gone with this one, Gray. Normally you're quite dismissive.
It's been on my mind. It's been on my mind in a way that I find unsettling. But so let's hear the details of this.
Before I give you the details of this car crash, one of the other times, it's not as dramatic, but it's always a reminder that the audience is reasonably large, is that every time a new podcast comes out, someone will tweet or send a message saying, "Oh, this is brilliant. It's like you've put it out for my birthday. It's my birthday today and there's a new podcast out." And then like 10 minutes later, someone else does. And then 10 minutes later, someone else does. And there's all these people saying, "Oh, wow, it's my birthday and there's a new podcast out." And you begin to think, "Oh, wow, what a lucky coincidence." And then it's like, oh, actually, that's not very surprising, is it?
This is where I'm a terrible human being, because every time I see one of those comments on the Reddit or on Twitter, again, I'll hit reply, and then I'll always think, why are you going to reply and say the thing that you're going to say? Just close the reply box. There's no point to saying this, because I always wanted to say, we didn't make it for you, right? Happy birthday, but it's not for you. There's no reason to say that. That person knows that. They know it.
Yeah.
But I have this literal response every time I see those kind of comments, and I feel like I want to correct the person. Be like, I'm happy this is a nice coincidence for you, but it wasn't for you, buddy. It's just your birthday.
Yeah.
It's
there's about
birthday.
700 other people whose birthday is also listening to the podcast.
Happy birthday to everybody whose birthday it is today. Happy birthday to you, whenever you're listening.
Can I get a small, skinny hot chocolate, please?
Any cream on the top?
No, thank you.
And anything to eat?
No, that's fine, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Drive around for me.
Okay.
There you go, my love.
Thank you. Got it.
There you go.
Oh, can I get a hot stopper?
We haven't got any stoppers. I can give you a couple of stirrers, which will stop it coming out.
Have you run out or you just don't have them?
We've run out.
Oh, okay, cool. No, that's okay.
You sure?
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
that's okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
How come you've run out? Are they really popular, or?
We've just run out and we ordered them for our Thursday delivery and today, and they've just not turned up. So I don't know if the supplier's not doing them or we ran out on our Monday. So
Maybe there's been some big run on them
We're not
nationwide.
sure. But I am sorry.
All right.
Thank you.
Sounds like there's been a nationwide shortage of hot stoppers. Woohoo! We spoke about unlucky numbers recently and how the number 4 in China is considered unlucky because of its associations with death.
Right, because in Chinese, the word for 4 sounds like the word for death.
There was some similarity in the way they're said or written. I think it's said. I don't know. Anyway, this came from Joel, who sent us another picture with reference to the picture below. The floors in my apartment, which have the number 4 in it, such as 24, for example, are replaced by placing an A behind the previous floor. Therefore, the 14th floor of my apartment is notated as 13A, which is a good example he chose because there are so many apartment buildings that don't have a 13. But anyway, this phenomenon is prevalent in apartments in my state of Penang in Malaysia, as most property groups here are owned and managed by Chinese people. So if you want to tell, you got that picture there, Gray?
Yeah. This is a picture of the floor selector panel in the elevator. And the floors are listed as 2, 3, 3A, 5. Right, and then going over a bit, it's 12, 13, 13A, 15, 22, 23, 23A, 25, and so on.
What a mess. I wonder if that building goes into the 40s, then they'd be in real trouble then, wouldn't they?
I cannot stand stuff like this.
Oh, I love it. I love all that quirkiness.
I bet you would, but if I were to build a skyscraper, it would have a 13th floor. It would have floors with the number 4 in it. You can't kowtow to this pointless human superstition. You're just encouraging it.
Yeah, but then when a ghost haunts floor 13, it's going to be entirely your fault.
I'll accept the burden of that possibility. I just think this kind of stuff encourages people to assume, superstitious people, right? Not rational people, but people who are bent this way anyway. It validates their fears of the number 4. Oh, if apartment buildings don't want to put 4 in, it must be bad. Or if they don't want to put 13 in, it must be bad. I'm never a fan even of when elevators do the mezzanine basement, lower basement
and you
thing.
can't you can't tell where, like, do I want to get out at L or G or like where do I get how do I just get out of this building?
Listen, elevator developers, I have the solution for you. This is how this should work. The floor, which is level with the earth, that's at the ground level, that is floor 0. And you start counting up from that. So the floor above where you walk in is floor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And then all of the floors below the ground are negative numbers. So the basement is -1, and then if you have a lower basement, it's -2, -3, and so on. This is the only way to number elevators. This is the way all elevators should be numbered.
What if it's one of those buildings that has like split entrances though, like on the north side of the building, because it's on the side of a mountain, you go out to the ground floor on one floor, but to go out on the south side of the building, it's like a floor lower.
I knew you were going to ask this. I could feel you waiting, right, to throw a monkey wrench into my plans.
Yeah, what do you do then?
But every single building has a main entrance, an entrance that is on a busier road. I'm thinking of like buildings that would usually have this multiple level problem, or something like a hotel. When I was in Hawaii, you'd see lots of hotels that were on hills and could have multiple levels that are exposed to the ground. But wherever it is that the vast majority of people coming to the building for the first time are going, that is floor 0. The end.
Okay. Tweet Gray or your exceptions, people.
No, there are no exceptions.
There are.
You as the building owner, it is your responsibility to set an axis, to set an origin point at whichever floor is most sensibly the main floor, floor 0.
If there's any doubt, you choose the door that would have had the ribbon that was cut by the Queen when your building was open.
Which entrance are people going to take their picture in front of? Which is the entrance where people come in? I don't think it's hard. But more importantly, it just matters that you pick one. You just pick one and then you have a consistent numbering on the inside. But everybody should get into an elevator and know that if they press floor 0, they can exit the building on that floor.
Speaking of weigh-ins, you know how when I say something and I say that I haven't told you about, and like I've got a picture or something, you get really nervous?
Yeah, I always do.
All right. Well, you're about to get really nervous.
Okay. That doesn't help, Brady.
I know. This is not going to help, but just hold on to your butts and you'll get through the other end and everything will be all right. Because I have an exclusive photo, people. I have a photo of a CGP Grey weigh-in. And while I send this photo to Gray, which he's about to...
I am so, like, now, here's the thing, Brady.
Yeah, mate.
Before I made a joke about standing outside your window watching you weigh yourself.
Exactly. Yep.
Now I'm wondering, are there cameras in my house? You made reference to last time not knowing what I'm up to without cameras.
Yeah.
What have you done?
Things are about to get kind of weird. So
okay, let's move on with this.
While I send Gray a photo of the CGP Grey weigh-in, we are going to cut to some sound effects, which will give you... because I haven't just got pictures, I have audio of this weigh-in. So,
what the hell are you doing?
So you listeners can enjoy the audio while I send the picture to Gray, and all will be revealed in just a few seconds' time.
What the hell is this, Brady?
Cue the sound. Here comes the picture, Gray.
Yeah, 820583. And the body condition score of this penguin is pretty good. Yeah, I think it's ideal, so 5 out of 9. 7. Should
Got my finger.
No.
I find it easier, I got more control then.
Yeah. Let's check the feet, sometimes they get bumblefoot, but what else? Oh, preen gland. These can get preen gland abscesses, so...
Oh. Jesus. Jesus, Brady. Okay, can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I just wanted to pull up, because I was curious. My Apple Watch heart rate is 115 beats per minute right now. Just waiting for whatever the hell is coming through from Brady Land. You know what comes through? CGP Grey the penguin.
Yeah.
Which I'm presuming, because I have no idea what you're up to, I'm presuming you had penguin noises playing in the sound effect before?
No, I've got a video. I've got a video of the whole thing. So what people just heard, so they knew before you.
Right.
They knew before you that
Okay.
it was CGP Grey the penguin had his big health check the other day, and the people, which included a weigh-in, and the people at Bristol Zoo recorded it for me.
How is that little penguin doing?
Well, here's I don't want to speak ill of anyone, but some of the people helping me out with the communications at Bristol Zoo have not moved as quickly as I would like. So they sent me this footage and said, oh, someone will be in touch this afternoon to explain it to you and give you all the details. Nothing. I've sent all these follow-up emails. I mean, it's not like we're like major benefactors of the zoo now. So I actually don't know what he weighed. I don't even know if he's a he or a she yet. We still don't know what gender he is. I think the gender test was part of this process. So what I do...
All I'll say is CGP Grey the penguin, from the photo, looking pretty good, looking pretty solid, and also looking much more like a penguin.
Yeah,
Because last time
yeah.
he was all brown. He was
he looks
still
like
a penguin chick.
Yeah, he looks like his parents now, doesn't he?
They grow up so fast, don't they, Brady?
They do. For people who have not or cannot see the picture, basically the penguin is like, it looks like it's hung itself. It's sort of hanging from a noose, but the noose is like under its wing. And obviously they just dangle it to figure out what it weighs. And it was weighed back in May, and I think it weighed about 2.9 kilograms then. I don't know what it weighs now. I do know that its body condition was 5 out of 9, which apparently is good. Like that's what it was supposed to be. It was checked for bumblefoot, and it had some mild thing on its foot, but it was okay.
Some mild bumblefoot, okay.
There were no abscesses on its preening glands, and the eyes and the mouth were checked. And I also learned from watching the video that penguins don't like humans fiddling around with their mouths.
Who is a fan of someone else fiddling around with your mouth, shoving their fingers in your mouth? No, nobody.
Great, now you're being naughty.
I am only being naughty if that's the kind of thing that you're into, which you have just revealed your hand, Brady.
So, Penguin 820583, named CGP Grey in honour of CGP Grey, has had its health check. I still don't know if it's a boy or a girl. There is still much information that is unknown, but watch this space.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, even the penguin has weigh-ins.
He's got to go in the opposite direction. He's got to put on some weight, gain some muscle, drink some protein shakes.
Only to a certain point.
Yeah, of course. Of course, only to a certain point. That's how that works.
Yeah. I drank my first cup of coffee.
I cannot believe that you drank a cup of coffee.
Pretty amazing, hey?
You've stirred up the people on the internet as well, because there have been it's like a Russian revolution where people want to tear down the statue of you being hard as nails and rejecting a cup of coffee. It's like you are you have failed to live up to that statue.
No, Gray. If there's something you really, really don't like, and then you go through and have it anyway, that is what is hard as nails. Having the coffee is what makes me hard as nails.
I see how you're trying to play this, Brady. It seemed like in the video that you enjoyed your first cup of coffee. Is that a fair assessment? It was a little bit hard to tell how much you really liked it and how much you were being polite.
Well, to give people the little bit of background, I was at the house of a person called Marco Arment, who is a very famous app developer and computer guy, and also a very well-known podcaster. But he's perhaps most known for his love of coffee and being a complete coffee snob. So when I said I was going to his house, he knows I don't drink coffee, but he joked, I'll make you a coffee, ha ha, but not really. And when I got there, he was offering me a drink and said, do you want a cup of tea? And I just said, I'm not going to come to the home of someone who is famous for their love of coffee and not have a coffee. That would be crazy. And I think he was a bit taken aback, but I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it. If I'm ever going to do it, why not do it? If I'm going to lose my virginity, I want to lose my coffee virginity to someone who knows their coffee.
Seems reasonable.
So he brewed one up. He also recorded it. There is a video of it. There is even audio, so people can enjoy it. For those who care about such details, it was some Kenyan coffee, and Marco roasts it himself, so he roasted it to a certain level that he thinks is just right and is not the norm. And it was made with an AeroPress, whatever that is. I didn't really see what he was doing. There was some contraption that looked like a huge siphon that I used to use to clean out my fish tank, but he made it with that, whatever that was, and he gave it to me. And he asked if I wanted milk or sugar, which normally would have been my thing, I imagine, because I like milky, sugary things. But I said, no, I want it. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it properly. If I'm going to be a bear, I'm going to be a grizzly. And I partook of the coffee.
So the question is, are you going to drink coffee again? Was your first experience something that you would want to repeat?
I'm not in a hurry to have another one. In many ways, it was what I expected. It sort of tasted like it smelled, and it was quite bitter.
I believe your exact words were, it tastes like dirt.
I was surprised how earthy and dirt-like it tasted. There were definitely nuances of dirt. And I don't mean that in an entirely negative way.
Right.
It just kind of tasted a bit... I don't know if all coffee's like that or just this kind of, Kenyan roast that was done by the coffee guru. But...
You started in at the deep end. Like, that's a pretty intense coffee. And without anything to dilute it at all, that's going to taste earthy. I mean, I'm drinking coffee right now, and I still haven't worked my way up to the no additives whatsoever to coffee. Like, that's really intense.
I did get a pleasantness from it. I didn't feel affected by the caffeine or anything. It was quite a small cup, of course, but and I think I was being treated gently because it was my first time. But it didn't feel like some crazy drink. I certainly found it more pleasant than I find in tequila or sambuca, both of which I find quite unpleasant. I have quite unpleasant reactions to those. But I certainly would drink a coffee before I did tequila shots.
Okay, that's where it is on the hierarchy of drinks.
Yeah, it comes in above sambuca and tequila, but and lychee juice, but below most other things. It was also I was given a very, very nice piece of apple pie by Marco's wife, who is a woman called Tiff, who more importantly was wearing a Reunion Swamp Pen t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
First one I'd seen in the wild.
Well, you were wearing the Jamaican Rice Rat shirt.
I was, and that was the first time I'd worn it. I'd got a tip off that she was going to be wearing the Reunion Swamp Pen, so I thought I'd be provocative and turn up in a Jamaican Rice Rat shirt just to sort of have that thing going. But
I believe she put that up on Twitter, I think, yes?
Yes, we'll show the pic. We've been contacted by someone who asked you to cast an eye, not over the flag of Liberia, which is a perfectly serviceable flag, but the Liberia county flags. Now, have you seen the Liberia county flags yet before you look at them?
No, I have. I mean, I was typing it into Google right now, but no, I have not seen them. So I haven't pressed return or anything.
So if you go to the flag of Liberia on Wikipedia,
okay.
At the top you'll see the Liberian flag. It looks a lot like the American flag, except it has 1 star instead of 50.
Right.
But if you scroll down, you will see the county flags of Liberia. Now, I thought this was a joke, but obviously not.
Ooh.
And I think this is worthy of people's time just to have a look at the... Liberia is apparently subdivided into 15 counties, each of which has its own flag. These are obviously like states, things like that. Each county flag bears the national flag of Liberia in the canton. So in the top corner, you see like a miniature version of their flag. And then obviously they're free to do what they want with the rest.
These are awful.
It is extraordinary what these people have done. I would like to say they've used clip art, but I don't know where you would find clip art that bad.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe this. So all of the flags have the already very busy Liberia flag up in the corner. Up in the corner, very small, I might add. So it looks odd, the proportions of it. If you think of, for example, the current New Zealand flag that has the Union Jack in the upper corner, it's maybe half that size. So it almost looks like a stamp on the wrong side of a postcard.
It looks like a little pull-down menu or something sitting up there in the corner.
Yeah. So they all have it in the corner, except as I'm scrolling through, just one of them, Grand Cape Mount County, doesn't put it in the corner like everybody else. They have it a little bit away from the corner. So that's always great. Not even consistent with everybody. Good job there, Grand Cape Mount County. But yeah, they're just... It's so... I am struggling to describe this for someone who's just listening in audio form.
It's basically like a child using MS Paint.
Yeah,
and not even one who's very good at it. Like an unusually artistically untalented child using MS Paint to draw pictures.
Yeah, I think that is exactly right. It is every one of these things is childish in a way that is quite surprising. I mean, okay, so let me try to let me
I'm going to put you on the spot here, Gray.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to lay down the challenge here and now for you to name which one you think is the worst. And beautifully, there actually is a county called Maryland County in Liberia, and their flag is a candidate for worst in the bunch. So, but don't let that bias you.
Okay, let me just try to describe something for the listeners here, and I'll take the Maryland County flag as an example. Okay, so once again, I will paint a beautiful audio picture for you listeners of this disaster in front of me. Liberia flag in the upper left-hand tiny corner.
Yeah.
The flag is divided, it's like a tricolor in horizontally, right? So there's 3 horizontal stripes. The top and the bottom one are yellow. The middle one isn't a stripe though, it's just a picture. Yeah. it's so bad. Okay, so there's a picture of a I'm presuming it's a lighthouse that someone has drawn. The windows on the lighthouse are uneven. One of them is touching the top in a way that wouldn't possibly work. The very tip of the lighthouse is floating above the lighthouse, a bit like the eye on the US $1 bill, like it floats on the top of the pyramid. It kind of looks like that. And then presumably they've drawn like lines coming out from the lighthouse that I presume are supposed to be the light itself, but they're all uneven. Some of them are joined at the base, some of them aren't. And so this lighthouse is all white. It's on a green hill, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
But the green is very bright. It makes you think of MS Paint because it's like when you select the default color green in a painting tool.
Yeah.
It's like this green is just a green that doesn't look good on anything. Right? No one should use this color green, but is the default color green for everything you ever do on a computer. Okay.
Yeah.
Next to this lighthouse and 25% larger than it is a tree. Right?
Like a sort of a palm tree-esque, but not quite a palm tree. but-
Yeah. Okay, so imagine a child has drawn a tree, and they've made it look saggy, so it has leaves that are coming down. The thing that amazes me is this drawing is just flat colors, except one part of the drawing is shaded, which is on the tree part. They've shaded in the bottom of the tree so that the leaves are, I guess they're trying to make the leaves look round, but nothing else on the drawing is shaded. And then in the background is a just flat blue sky, which again is a horrible color blue that doesn't go with the green of the ground. And remember, listener, this is just a 1/3 of the flag size strip in the middle. Above and below is bright, bright yellow. And there's also another flag on the top. It's awful.
You're picking such minutiae to criticize as well. I mean, I even love
it's because like you can't take in the whole thing at once. Like it's just too much. I'm trying to think about how to describe this. This is amazing.
It's like the president of Liberia asked his 10-year-old kid to design some flags and put them up on the fridge, and then someone said, "Actually, why don't we make them the actual flags?"
Yeah, I mean these are just.
And I love how the Liberia flag in the canton in the left corner doesn't quite fill up the whole yellow section, but it looks like it should, but they didn't quite do it. And
it doesn't. I mean, just jumping over. There's another one with trees on it, which is River Gee County flag.
Oh, that is I think that's in my top 2 for worst.
Okay, but this has what is literally the exact tree that every kindergartner in the world draws, where you have a trunk and then there is a green cloud shape on the top of the trunk. And there's 3 of these trees.
People, you have to look at this flag. You have to look at the flag of River Gee or River Gee County in Liberia. You have to stop the podcast now. You have to, if you don't have the internet, you have to walk into the nearest shop or whatever you're near and say, please, can I use your internet and look at the flag of River Gee County in Liberia? Do it right now.
Yeah. I mean, there's a hill. There's 3 trees on this hill. Well, one of the things that I like here is the tree on the top, they didn't even draw it entirely on the ground. And so the way it works is there's a tiny bit of sky poking below what should be the roots of the tree because they just didn't draw it low enough to the ground. Again, like when a kindergartner draws stick figure people and they're just floating above the actual ground. They're not touching the ground. I mean,
is this a joke, Gray? Is this is someone taking the mickey? Has someone hacked this site? And because Flag of Liberia is quite obscure, no one would look like. I can't. And the green of the leaves of the tree is the exact same green as the hill. And because one of the trees is on the hill,
right?
You can't see and then there's a river flowing, which is just a hand drawn river, which is flowing from the trunk of one of the trees.
Yes, these are so bad. But perfectly bad, not bad like Maryland, where it hits the Maryland point. You're like, oh, this is amazing. This is just crap. It is just absolute crap. There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah.
But I honestly hope this is just masterful trolling. That this is just a joke, and that someone did this because the Flag of Liberia wiki page probably doesn't have a whole lot of people really on top of it to make sure that nothing like this gets slipped in.
I'm going to try and look for a secondary source here.
Yeah, this is what I was just opening up my own web browser. I'm like, Liberia. If we have been taken for a ride, this is the best ride I've ever been on. This is just great.
No, see, I'm seeing some of them in other sources, but they're kind of also sometimes they're a bit different, but still bad. Because it says on the Wikipedia article that they do fly at this. You can see them flying at some palace, and I'm now seeing a photo of them all flying. So I think this is real.
It's amazing. That's amazing.
They are special. And looking through some pictures here, it looks like other people have cottoned on to the joy of these in the past as well. So do yourself a favour. Check out the county flags of Liberia. Grey, what are you going to throw out there as the worst? I think the worst comes down to there are 3 candidates for worst, in my opinion.
They're all so bad.
They're all
hard
bad
to
in
pick.
special ways. River G, I think has to perhaps get it, but Bomi County, the first one there, I think you could make a strong case for that one as well, and you could also make a strong case for Gabapolo County, which is the one with the diamond and a flare and a tree, which is just bad in many ways that the others haven't quite accomplished as well. Like it has a very special levels of badness.
I can honestly say I am just overwhelmed looking at these. I find this impossible to select among. It's almost like someone served me up several plates, each with a turd on them, and they want me to know, like, pick which one is the worst to eat. It's like, well, they're all terrible.
It's more like I'm saying, which one are you unwilling to eat? Which turd is so bad a turd that you won't eat it? And you're like, well, I don't want to eat any turds.
Yeah. The only one I'm looking at here is Sinoe County, which is on the bottom, is a flag that under normal circumstances I would probably make fun of. But it seems like it is a glorious bastion of good design. Yeah. And like as a second option here, there's Grand Bassa County, another flag that I would totally make fun of under any other circumstances, which just looks amazing. They're just
the guy that designed Sono County is like the Johnny Ive of Liberia.
Yeah. For the listener, it's just the Liberia flag in the corner, and then it's just a green cross across the flag. And the Grand Bassa County one is just a blue background, and then there's a couple of red and white stripes on it. It's like, oh, it's awful, but it looks amazing in comparison.
These are great. So they're a real treat.
Yeah, listeners, you do have to go look at these.
If you're listening in Liberia and want to share more information with us, maybe make the case for them. I mean, it's a completely different culture to what Gray and I are from. I mean, maybe in sort of Liberian culture, there's something about Liberian visual culture that makes these a real treat. And these have gone through years of iterations, and they are the pinnacle of.
I mean, that is just
design.
not possible, Brady. That is just not possible. I mean, look at the Laffa County one, the one that has a disembodied arm.
Holding what? Holding like a rod of some golden thing across a river.
Right. It's holding a cylinder, but here's the thing. Someone has done a 3D gradient effect on the cylinder. Gradients, always excellent on flags, by the way, right? Yeah. They just look amazing. But the gradient has spilled over onto the fingers that are holding on to the cylinder. There's no way that this is a refinement of anything. This is just astounding. This is astounding. This is like the opposite universe version of the Japanese prefecture flags. That's what this is.
Right. They're really good, are they? The Japanese. I think I've seen them. They are good, aren't they?
Yeah, you will have seen them. Yeah. They're very good. But this is the reverse of that.
So I think probably the most common question that we've been asked
by a mile
was, how did we meet?
Yeah. Do you remember how we met, Brady?
I remember the very first time we met. I remember where you were sitting. I don't remember what you were wearing.
Uh-huh.
But I remember the first time I laid eyes on you.
See, this is so romantic. I don't remember anything about this. So you're going to have to tell me the story.
Do you not remember?
I know the broad strokes of the story of how we first met, but I have no recollection for the specific moment. So I am just as curious as the Tims are to find out the answer to this question.
All right, this one's for you, Tims. There was a conference held in Waterloo in Canada. It was organised by Henry of Minute Physics fame, and he invited various educational YouTubers, and so you were invited, and I was invited along with numerous other people. And I remember I arrived at the hotel we were staying at the day before, and I didn't know anyone. I'd never even met Henry. I'd only emailed with Henry. I knew no one. Mm-hmm. I'd come over from the UK, and I told Henry that I'd arrived, and he said, "I'll come and meet in my hotel room. Mm-hmm. I'm here with Dirk of Veristablium." Although I think he pronounced it as Derek from Veritasium at the time, but he said, "I'm with him, and I'm with CGP Grey." So I went to the hotel room, and I knocked on the door, and the door opened, and there was Henry, and there was Derek. And from memory, I think I sat on the bed, maybe, or on a chair next to the bed with Derek, and he was like showing me some camera he had, and I was meeting everyone for the first time, and you were sitting in the corner.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I remember this now. Now that you bring it up, I remember this.
I don't know if I knew, because I'm not someone who like researches who everyone was, so I didn't know who was big and important and who wasn't and who. But I do remember, I don't think I knew who you were. Like, I don't think I knew, that's the guy or whatever, because I wasn't like a watcher of your videos. But I do remember.
And there were a lot of people at the conference. Like, it was quite reasonable to not know who the vast majority of the people were.
I'll tell you a funny story about John Green at that conference later, if I remember, because there's a brilliant example of that. Mm-hmm. But then I remember you spoke, and at one point I connected your voice with the UK video, because I was very familiar with the UK video, which is like your big famous first breakthrough video, and because my brother-in-law really liked that and sent it to me. And I do remember at one point saying, oh, man, yeah, I do know. And I remember commenting, wow, your voice is just like it is in the videos, because a lot of other people aren't necessarily like that.
Yeah.
But I do remember at one point saying, now I know who you are because I recognise your voice from the UK video. That's my only memory of that first meeting. And then, like, obviously, you know, we hung out at that conference loads and loads.
Yeah.
But what's your memory of that then?
Well, the thing that I'm reminded of is, yes, I now remember that hotel room, because that was when I first met Henry and Derek at Veritasium. But the main memory I have of that moment was of going into that room and strategically realizing that I needed to secure the chair as fast as possible.
Right. That
there was one chair in the room and there was a bed. And it was a bit of like, oh, it's just a hotel room where people are going to meet. And I have gotten much better than I used to be, but like I'm never good at meeting people even at my best. And I was worse at it then than I am now. And so I just remember, like, I walked into that room and it was like, okay, I need to get the chair and I need to get the corner of the room so that my back is to the wall so that I can I can see everybody coming in. And I also I don't have to deal with any of the awkwardness of standing, right, or like moving around or shuffling. It's like, no, I'm going to anchor myself to the corner and I'm going to be able to see everybody. And this is how I will deal with a parade of new people. That is my primary memory of that.
You gave the impression of being that guy.
I am
quietly sitting
surprised.
in the corner.
I am not surprised at all. That conference was for me, as it was for you, where I met many of the people that I now know on YouTube and would count as friends and associates. It was a great conference that Henry put together. And the backstory for me on that, which Henry knows very well, is that I was having a really hard time securing whether or not I was going to be able to go to that conference, because that was actually happening a month before my contract was up as a teacher. And I had quit my job, but going to this thing, or sorry, not a month before, it was 2 weeks before, because that's right, the conference was just a few days. But I had quit my job long ago. The way it works in teaching is that you have to resign months and months and months before you actually leave. So my resignation letter had been in for forever, but my boss at the time just refused to have me be able to take some time off and go to this thing. Like, it was a really, really big deal. And it came down to this big fight about, like, I was going to have to break my contract as a teacher to go, because they're like, oh, you can't just go to this thing. There's no legitimate reason for you to go. And it was a really stressful time in my life. And I was trying to make this decision of like, man, if I break my contract and go to this conference, and then this YouTube career doesn't pan out, it is going to be really hard to go back into the teaching world when the last job is like, oh yeah, he just left irresponsibly at the end and he's a teacher with a broken contract. That all eventually got resolved, but it was one of these things where I had to make a very difficult decision to go to that conference. And I look back on that as that was definitely one of the best decisions that I made, was like, damn the torpedoes and damn all the problems that are happening around this. This conference represented the future career that I wanted. And if it meant screwing around with the past career that I had, like, that was the correct decision to make, even though it was very hard to do that at the time.
It was a chance to meet Brady Haran for you, and look what that led to.
But this is exactly what I mean. I guess that is no joke. Because of that conference, we have this podcast. I think it would be much less likely that we would be doing this podcast now if we hadn't met up then.
No, definitely not. Before I talk about, because we were also asked about how the podcast started, but before we sort of fast forward to that in our friendship, my favourite story from that conference when it comes to who knew who, I didn't know anyone. I didn't know who's a big deal and who's not. I wasn't into like much Green Brothers stuff at that point, although they were like massive. But I had figured out who John Green was, and John Green was already a really big deal then. Not as big as he is now because of all the movies and stuff like that. I mean, you know, he's like a big megastar now, but he was like a really big deal already then in YouTube land. And my favourite thing was I was at reception, and John Green walked in and just sort of loitered in reception, and no one there knew who he was. And I walked up to him and said, "Oh, hi, I'm Brady." And I think he may have known, you know, hi, Brady. And he probably had looked up who I was and knew that I made chemistry videos and stuff. And he was like, "How are you?" And we were having a little chat. And then some other people at the conference came up to us, and for whatever reason, they were very familiar with me and who my work, and had no idea who John was. And I know that's really uncommon, but that was just what happened. And they were like, "Oh, Brady, it's so great to meet you." And they were like, "Oh, I'm even like a little bit starstruck. I've been watching your stuff for so long, and it's really nice to meet you." And I'm like, "Oh, that's, you know, thank you. It's really nice." And then they turned to John and like just put their hand out and said, you know, "Hi, I'm Sandy. Who are you?" And he was like, "John. I'm John Green." And they're like, "Oh, it's nice to meet you." And then which I find really funny because, you know, John's such a big deal. But the best bit was then we all got on the bus, and I was like, we're all sitting together, and these people who still didn't know who he was, we were all talking about what we were doing next, and a whole bunch of people were going from this conference on to VidCon, which was being held like the next week in California.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
They were asking, they said to me, "Oh, are you going to VidCon after this?" And I'm like, yeah, I am. And then they turned to John and said, "Are you going to VidCon?" and that must have put John in the most awkward position.
Yes.
And he sort of, I don't think he knew how to answer it. And he said, he was a total gentleman, but I just think he kind of froze about what to say. So he just kind of went, Yeah, I am. Actually, I own VidCon.
Right.
and I gave him such a hard time about that. And for the rest of the conference, I was always, "Hi, I'm John Green. Yes, I own VidCon." The minute it came out of his mouth, he was like, "Oh no, that just did not come out how it was supposed to come out."
Right.
And I gave him a razzing the rest of the conference about that. But
that's your specialty, Brady.
Yeah. So anyway, that was funny. No one knowing who anyone else was, and. Anyway, so that was kind of... I don't think I was humble bragging then. I'm trying to figure out if I was humbling.
You were just telling a story. That's all you were doing. You were just telling a story.
All right.
There's no humble braggingness in it or anything. It was just a story. That's all.
So anyway, for people who asked how the podcast started, which we have discussed before, but we sort of... Like we didn't become bosom friends as a result of that, but we started seeing each other at various conferences, and also because you and I are the two guys who lived in the UK,
right? We
would occasionally see each other in London. If I was coming to London for the day, I would like sometimes contact you, and we'd just go for a drink or something. And
very occasionally though, because I think we originally saw each other more in San Francisco. There were 2 YouTube education conferences that happened in the subsequent years. And that's what I mean. Like, I feel like if we hadn't met at that first conference, we wouldn't have been as friendly at those subsequent conferences. And I think that like that helped things along. Like, oh, I know this person from this other thing, and you feel closer than you would have if you were just meeting them for the first time.
Yeah, it was a bit like the people that went to the Waterloo thing were almost like a little subset of that had that extra history, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. You have a bit of an extra history. And so then we met occasionally in London, but not very frequently.
No.
So what's your perspective on how the podcast started?
Well, I know what a podcast is, but I was not a podcast listener. And I didn't know that you were particularly into podcasts because it was not something we would ever talk about. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know you were actually a bit of a podcast fan and a big devourer of podcasts. It's just not something I knew about you. Mm-hmm. But I was making a video for Numberphile at one point, and it was all about the different perspectives that Americans have on numbers and sort of the way numbers are said and the way we deal with numbers in everyday life. And I'd interviewed an American woman about it. But I felt like the video wasn't quite strong enough, and I wanted to sort of juice the video up a bit. And I knew that I think I had talked about this sort of thing with you before, and I knew it was a sort of topic that would be of interest to you. So I asked you if I could do a little interview with you. And I had interviewed you before for other videos, sort of, with your face obscured and stuff.
Yeah.
Just as, as sort of meta type things that YouTubers do together. So I said to you, could I interview you just over Skype or on the phone or something, or I'll come to you in London and I won't show your face or anything, and just talk to me about it, and then I'd have you animated. So there'd be like a little animated grey. So you would be like the second interviewee on the topic. And I thought this was going to be quite a hard sell because, you're always pretty cautious and reluctant to do new things. And you were like really up for it, like straight away. You were like, yeah, I'll totally do it. And I was like, I think I was probably saying, do you want me to come to London for it or something? And you were like, no, I'm going to record it at this end, and I'm going to record it on my computer while we do the Skype call. And you were like really proactive with all the ideas of how you do it. And like you were unusually agreeable for you.
Yes, suspicious in retrospect.
No, I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't suspicious, but I was surprised. So, I phoned you up on Skype and I asked you the questions I wanted to ask you, and you chatted about them in your usual way, and it made for a really nice video. I think the videos actually may have got to 1 million views now. So it made for a really nice watchable video. Mainly thanks to you, and you did that. And then I don't remember how you approached me after that. You didn't mention a podcast at the time then at all. But subsequent to that, at some point, you brought up the idea of doing a podcast, and I sort of said to you, I'm always up for doing anything new, and I enjoy doing things with you. So I'm sure I was agreeable from the start, but I did say I don't listen to podcasts very much.
Mm-hmm.
So you gave me a couple of podcasts to listen to. You gave me probably a list of 5 or 6, but I do remember there were 2 you said in particular I should listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's funny about that is the 2 you suggested I listen to, I remember, were the Accidental Tech Podcast with Marco Arment and John Siracusa and Casey Liss, which is just guys talking about technology, and the Talk Show with John Gruber, which is, again, it's another Apple-y one. This reflects that you're quite into Apple-y stuff. You suggested listening to that as well, and I listened to a few episodes of those, and I quite like them. And the reason I find that's quite funny is that now, at our 50th episode, the last 2 days I actually spent visiting both Marco Arment from ATP and John Gruber from the Talk Show. So it's kind of like really fitting that just as we're doing our 50th, I've actually spent some time like in person with 2 of those people that I listened to around the start to kind of get an idea of what a podcast is and how it can work and things like that. So I listened to a few of them and we talked more, and the rest is history, isn't it?
I just pulled up, because I wanted to check the dates, I pulled up the video that we did, and the video that you have renamed now, British Numbers Confuse Americans, on Numberphile. It's at 1.5 million views.
Oh, right. Yeah, wow.
And that was July 25th, 2013.
Right.
And then the first episode of Hello Internet went up on January 31st, 2014. So about half a year later, roughly speaking.
Right.
And yes, as listeners may have picked up in that story, I had always been thinking of a podcast as something that I might want to do. Like, even before my YouTube career started, like I always listened to a lot of audio my whole life. And I thought, maybe a podcast is something that I could do, but it's a thing that you just can't do it alone. Like it the kind of thing that I thought maybe I could do, it requires someone else to work with it. Like it's a team effort. It can't be a solo thing. And so it had always been in the back of my mind. And yes, in the beginning of 2013, when I had been doing YouTube for a little while, I was much more seriously thinking about, okay, I do need another side project here. I want to have something else to work on in the afternoons when I'm not very productive at YouTube work. And so I was getting more serious about the podcast, and I was trying to think about who would make a good host. And essentially that was a list of one person, which was you. I don't know why, but it just seemed very natural to me that you would be the person that I would try to do this with, even though I couldn't clearly think of any reasons, except for you are a very good interviewer and I am not very good at talking. So it seemed like if I'm going to work with someone, I have to have someone who can help the conversation go along. And the listeners don't know, but like I have to edit myself to make myself sound way less awkward when the show goes up versus when we record it. I have to give you a lot of credit, Brady. Like, you do a lot of heavy lifting of keeping the show going, and I really do appreciate that.
Well, that is very kind of you, but it is also a gross exaggeration. And I will say, and hope that Greg doesn't edit out, that he doesn't edit himself out in that way, and he actually does. What you hear in the final show is quite accurate depiction of our conversations.
I make it much less awkward.
The thing you are bad at is asking me questions.
Yeah,
but you're getting better at that too.
It's awful. It's all. I really do. We've talked about it in private. I try so hard to get better at this, but I am just so bad at it. This has never been a skill of mine. But yeah, so that's why when you asked about me doing this video, I saw it as the perfect opportunity to test a podcast with the exact person that I thought a podcast would work great for. And so that's why I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. No, I don't want to do it in person. I explicitly don't want to do it in person. We're going to do it over Skype. And then over the next few months, we started talking more seriously about doing it and recording the few episodes in advance. And then whatever it was, half a year later, it finally went up live. And so that's the full story of how this show came to be.
I think a more important question that we've been asked by a few people is, would you rather fight 100 Jamaican rice rat-sized reunion swamp hens or one reunion swamp hen-sized Jamaican rice rat?
The thing is, more than one person asked that question.
Yeah. And some people got it wrong as well. Some people were like, would you rather fight 100 reunion swamp hen-sized Jamaican rice rats or one Jamaican rice rat-sized reunion swamp hen? I mean, that's a no-brainer, obviously. But what are your thoughts on that? 100 rice rat-sized swamp hens or one swamp hen-sized rice rat?
Maybe one rice hen. I'd fight one rice hen is what I would do.
Yeah, this is not playing to your strengths of getting these mixed up, is it?
I swear. As soon as you finished that sentence, I forgot which way around it went. And when you said, some people got it wrong the other way, I was like, how was that different from the first one? I think these creatures must be roughly the same size. I mean, we're not talking about a horse-sized duck or a duck-sized horse here.
No, it's not that extreme, but they're not that similar size. I mean, a swamp hen is a big bird.
I mean, but how big? Big like a turkey or big like a duck?
Big like a turkey.
It's like a turkey?
Yeah, so bigger than a turkey, I'd say. Small, but smaller than what you would call an emu, and I would call an emu.
Emu.
Don't start me on your pronunciation of emu.
It's an emu.
It's not an emu.
Okay, so the question is, it's a rat the size of a turkey or 100 turkeys the size of a rat?
No, yeah.
A turkey's relatively big. I think a rat the size of a turkey sounds a little intimidating.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
A bunch of turkeys the size of a rat.
But they got those beaks. They got beaks, and there's 100 of them.
Yeah. I think this is not an easy question.
I think it's maybe worthy of further consideration. I don't think it's a sort of question you can just rush into. It's like voting in the Hello Internet Flag referendum. This needs consideration and
because
discussion.
Killing 100 of anything is a lot. Right?
Yeah.
And they would have their little beaks.
Yeah.
I think if I have to pick, I think I would fight a rat the size of a turkey rather than 100 turkeys that are rat-sized. But I think there's a bigger downside, though, with the rat the size of a turkey. Like, I think that thing could actually kill you.
Yeah, whereas you can just kick away little things, I always like to think. Just, like, keep kicking them. And
yeah, but 100 of anything is a lot. Like, if 100 toddlers rushed you, you couldn't kick them all away. Like, no matter how small and useless they are, you can't kick them all away.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to discuss if I would kick 100 toddlers.
If they're attacking,
forum,
right? That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, maybe we need to discuss that further. That's a topic for another show.
I think the Reddit should discuss this. I think the Reddit should have a big conversation about the strategic advantages and disadvantages of both.
You go next. What do you like?
Someone asked about our Myers-Briggs personality types. Do you know about Myers-Briggs, Brady?
Yeah, I kind of do. I think my mum got into them at some stage when I was young and stuff. So
yeah. Do you have any idea what your Myers-Briggs personality type
are these the ones that are like called like JNTs and all that?
Yeah. That's the thing.
I don't know. I did it when I was like a boy, which
Right.
would mean nothing. But, you know, when my mum was into all that sort of stuff, I think she got me to take one. I'm like, what are you reading, mum? And she said, oh, take this test.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what I was then. And so obviously I don't know what I am now.
Yeah. There is almost certainly not a teenager on the face of the earth who hasn't at some point done the Myers-Briggs personality type tests that exist of various qualities around the internet. My feeling on Myers-Briggs personality types is that this is astrology for smart people. Like, this is just like, it's the same kind of thing, that there are these broad categories that everybody just can read something into. And I mean, astrology is just obviously bunk, and lots of people still get sucked into it. But there are plenty of people who are like, oh yes, I'm totally into Myers-Briggs, but astrology, oh no, I would never get into that. But it's like, you know what, dude, this is the same thing. That's what this Myers-Briggs stuff strikes me as. Just broad descriptions that everybody is going to match up with. So that is my verdict on Myers-Briggs.
So another thing that we've been asked about a lot over the last 50 episodes, but we were asked a lot of it, especially for this anniversary episode, is about the issue of guests on the podcast.
Yeah.
That comes up a lot. People are like, oh, you should have, because obviously, you know, we've got lots of interesting friends who we talk about all the time, obviously.
Right.
Or just guests in general. It's not something we've ever done. It's not something we really discuss. So at the very start, we discussed that it was an option. You know, there's no ban on it. We've never said we wouldn't do it, but it's something we've never done. We don't really talk about it much either, though. Like, do you have any thoughts on that you wish to share with the group?
Are we having like an official policy about?
No.
Show?
I mean, I think the most important thing about this is we've got a policy on nothing, because
Right.
we're guys who like changing our minds. But the thing I think about it is, be careful what you wish for. And I've never quite understood why people want it so much, because my attitude to that is like, I really like ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
And I also really like ketchup, but I don't like ketchup on my ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
So and I think there's almost become like a culture of assuming if you like one thing and you like another thing, the two should be mixed.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see that at all. Like, I listen to podcasts that don't have guests, and I'd be really disappointed if I tuned in one day and there was someone new on it, because I've kind of bought into one thing. So I don't know what it would be like if we had a guest, and we may find out one day when you least expect it. But I'm surprised. I'm surprised that people think it's such a big deal, and I think we've partly created the culture in the YouTube world, especially by doing like collabs all the time.
Yeah.
There's almost like this expectation that like, oh, if I like this person and I like this person and they do a video together, that's the most awesome thing you could ever imagine.
Right.
But like, I don't completely buy into that. I think it's perfectly nice to have. And I would also say, among a couple of the people that people say, oh, you should always get them on the show, some of those people who I've spoken to have always said to me, don't ever get me on your show.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't do that. That would be crazy. So anyway, do you have anything to add to that? I think it was asked enough times to be worth answering.
Oh yeah, it's always asked, and it kind of ties into another question that I saw some people ask, which is like, what do we think of the show now versus when it started? Because if you go back and you listen to those first few episodes, they're very different from what the show is now.
Yeah.
They were much shorter and they were much more focused on a topic.
Yeah.
And now the show is a very different thing. And my feeling was always that those first few shows were never what I thought the show would eventually be. I thought that if it was going to succeed, what it is now is exactly what it would be. It would be the two of us being able to talk about whatever, hopefully in interesting ways that people want to listen to. So where we are now is what I imagined that the show would be from the start. And I viewed those first few episodes as, well, we have to do something, or we have to start with topics. It has to be cut in this particular way. But these are almost aberrations, these first few episodes.
Yeah, you can't do follow-up in shows where there's nothing to follow up yet.
Right. It's just that the whole structure of it doesn't exist. And as the show goes on, like you build up this whole world of in-jokes and past references. And that to me as a person who listens to a lot of podcasts, is one of the very special things about what a podcast can deliver. This conversation that continually flows and continually builds on itself. And my view on guests is, like you, I'm not ever going to rule out something. I'm not going to say, oh no, we'll never do this, ever. But I just think that this show is so much the two of us. The changing who is on the show or adding people, even if those people are great, it just fundamentally changes this feeling from the listener's perspective of they are a friend sitting at a table listening to a conversation between friends, and they just happen to be a mute partner in this. Like, that is the feeling that I often have when I listen to podcasts, is like, oh, okay, I know these people and I'm listening to them talk about interesting things, and I just happen to not be contributing in the conversation. And my own experience as a podcast listener is when shows change, like sometimes shows will bring on like a guest every once in a while, or they'll change hosts or whatever. I just never like that. I always react negatively to that, even if they're bringing on someone who's interesting or who I like in a different context. So I would be very hesitant to bring on a guest, because I just think that changes what the show is, and it's very different from what the show is providing for people, if it provides anything at all. So that's kind of my feeling on it.
I saw a comment. I'm sorry, I can't remember where it was. It was probably Reddit or something. But someone said something that did tickle me. They were trying to describe to a friend what Hello Internet was, and the way they described it to their friend was, it's two guys on a podcast talking for a couple of hours about what they spoke about on the last podcast. I think that sums it up.
That is beautiful, Brady. That is exactly what we do here. Flaggy flag forever.